It's a brand new week. My name is Benjamin Akako. Welcome on the AM show. You know how we do it. We're going to be serving you timely, crucial information and analysis right here over these last 4 hours. Welcome to our beautiful studio. Welcome to a beautiful week. My message for you this morning, just something little. Wishing you the very best, that God will enlarge your coast, enlarge your territory like he did for Jabez, and that whatever you touch, God will give you that Midas touch so that it will turn to gold. Not literally, but figuratively, so that you will succeed. Having said that, let's settle for what you can expect on the show this morning. The news, I'll be serving you that, followed by the news review with Joyce Lanyo, Country Director, International Child Development Program. From there, of course, we'll segue neatly into sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. And after that, the big stories. Now, number one on our chopping board. The Social Security and National Insurance Trust has assuaged fears that pension benefits of workers would be in limbo by 2036, as indicated by an actuarial study, of the International Labour Organization. But what are the facts? Are the SSNIT reserves depleting or not? And are they making good returns from their investments? Again, we ask, is government fulfilling its obligation to SSNIT as it should, as it ought to? We'll delve into those all-important matters right here on the AM show. We'll also bring you a Joy Hotline documentary, After the Floods. You know what we're talking about. It's a tale of the misery, pain, and neglect bequeathed to residents of North Pong and surrounding areas months after the spillage of the Akosombo Dam by the Volta River Authority, and how resilience is fortifying them. Stay tuned for more on this documentary produced by Carlos Calon. But later on the show, what is it? What exactly is it in Ejisu that has sent a whole government machinery campaigning in an MPP stronghold with no contest from the NDC? Could it be that the independent candidate, Akufo-Addo, could cause an upset, which is why all guns are blazing as far as Ejisu is concerned with the New Patriotic Party? We'll be hearing from our analysts. Stay with us as we go through this entire belt of conversations right here on the AM show. You don't want to miss a beat, because if you miss it, you miss out. Up next, the news. Thank you for staying. Let's kickstart the news now. In our first story, in our Doomsaw Diaries, we'll take you to Odoko Buzia Junction, where a 53-year-old man and his 50-year-old brother, who run a tailoring shop, lament how the intermittent power supply is affecting them. Adobia Asare tells the story about the struggles of these artisans in the midst of the Doomsaw crisis. There's more in this report.
Edward Jabo is a 53-year-old man whose livelihood depends only on his handicraft, sewing. The recent inconsistent supply of power is having a terrible toll on him.
I'm experiencing power cuts very well. When the power is off, our work also gets stuck. We don't meet our customers' needs.
His younger brother, 50-year-old Benjamin Jabo, works with him. He recounts how he had to improvise to satisfy a client when Dunso took a seat at his workplace.
Sometimes it goes off and doesn't come until the next day. So 4 days ago, it went off. So I had to run to East Legon to go and do some job for someone because the person needed it so much.
The men share with me how they have no other alternative to make ends meet.
This is what we do to make a living. So when there is no power, you can't do any work. We don't have any other work to do attached to what we are doing now. We are just sewing. Things are stuck. So even if you get a generator and you sew, how much will you charge your customer for the person to be able to pay? Even with electricity, when you charge, they complain. So when you add generator, you buy fuel to sow, and you have to add a little more cost to it. It's very disgusting.
So you use electric machines here. What is the Dumso causing you to do differently?
We use hand sewing machines, but when the light goes off, you can sew. Up to some point, you need the iron to iron. So if it gets to that point, you can't do anything.
So, how is the situation affecting them financially?
Power cuts here in Ghana make us lose a lot of money, because in a week, at least, if you don't have anything, at least in a week you can have, if you don't have anything, you can have at least some 1,000 B. But when power interruptions happen like that, you cannot have that money. You end up maybe what you use to buy food. When you after buying food, you don't have anything again. Our financial status is not going up. We always drop down.
Now that the lights goes off and doesn't come out, you can't pinpoint on what you get in the week. It's a problem.
The way you have to feed your family is even difficult for us. It's very difficult for us. The children's school, and then fees and all sorts of those things make us stuck.
These brothers, like majority of business owners, are calling for a load shedding timetable.
The load shedding has to come so that everybody will know how to plan his or her things.
We want a load shedding timetable to be out for us, so that we can adjust ourselves. If it has to be a night thing, we can do the night. Then the next day, when the light will go off, we can sleep. We need the timetable, but the timetable too is not coming for.
Because of the loyalty of their customers, Benjamin and Edward haven't lost any customers yet. However, they feel unsatisfied anytime a customer's demand isn't met due to the power crisis.
Are you the tailor doing the job? You feel bad, because that is your customer who has been giving you job all the time for you to get something into your pocket.
In the same vein, some seamstresses at the Kantamandu market here in Accra have not been left out of this crisis. They lament vehemently how they continue to lose customers because of the power cut.
If you are light off now, it may 3 days.
Sometimes our lights go out for 3 days. This retards our progress with work, and we tend to lose customers. It's electricity we use in doing our work, so when it goes off, I have no other option than to go home. The power situation is really affecting us.
These
things I sew are things I sell to take care of my family, so it's troubling when the lights goes off.
Thousands of artisans across the country continue to reel under the devastating impact of Dumso and do not have a clue on how to navigate around their businesses. With the back and forth on what really is the cause of this situation, whose job is it really to ensure a stable power supply for these people? Adobe Asari's report read to you.
Now, in respect of the Ejisu By-Election, President Akufo-Addo says persons manipulating the candidature of former NPP MP and independent candidate for Ejisu, Owusu will fail in their bid to claim the seat from the New Patriotic Party. Now, though the president is indifferent about the former NPP MP's decision to cut ties with the party, he says the candidate's attempt to resort to lies in staging a comeback should not be encouraged by voters. President Akufo-Addo says it is only the party's candidate who can lobby for development for the constituency. He emphasized the need for the party to have a majority in parliament.
say you are me. Say never done it here, my MPP. All right. So person done it here. All cousin done it in my MPP. Now never feel no more about no name 2008. Obano. Na Ejisu ha. You know MP, Ejisu, cabinet minister. Yeah, deputy minister. Cabinet minister. Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mijemu 2007. Semekwa pray the Franca Tune Abano. And a young Akufo, a Pejano, a Beshe Manemu. Cabinet minister. Ono no baya, ono no besi kind. Eno tuno. Ebeye candidate in our faces obeye MP. Eno de say eno de papa. Yes sir. Eno de na niche ho. So abawa betu cabinet minister. Awa obeye MP. Eno de boni bi enim. Na wo do so no bi aba betu a. Udi friends deputy minister. Eno ayo ya. Ema na wo nam na okika kansam. Sade ya no. Sade ya no. Ya independent bia. Ye who titru. Sinsama shedachi. So payufo bi shedachi ena ye wani no. So ba no me say embaso le embaso tra. But it's also no. And an answer of the acquiring ever a drizzle. If you buy a year for a bone, a day acquiring wire or the aperture Ejisu force or no and a year quine. You want to be regional chairman. Yes, I may come far from me. When I signed it here, I could be a Wagana, me and I'm a who to me and yes. The more Pobi and the president, MPP president, Akasa, na to asompenwa. Ye MPP ni eno beba no ba be kasa at say.
Well, President Akufo-Addo further dismissed allegations that the MPP would rig the elections.
So say, ye very na MPP for ba be wi abanum. About to man MPP no ye abano na no na sa no person kire ye say wi abano ma no ana we ebe de ye ba be wi abano ma no on jaja isam so dan na chi no ye minim de oye sa franto se chinyo ana ni mi nyina na abom e no oye a okoso ye ne sa no ma fa ya asam ma ba kan sam I fata entre.
In our next story, think tank Imani Africa has raised concerns in respect of the Electoral Commission's explanation for the discovery of 10 obsolete biometric verification devices at a recycling plant. In response to the EC statement that the devices were illegally or legally auctioned, Imani Africa has demanded clarification on several key aspects of the auction process. Imani Africa's founding president is also inquiring about the identity of the successful bidders and the rationale behind purchasing obsolete devices specifically designed for electoral purposes. The EC, in a statement on Friday, April 26, 2024, explained that some 10 biometric verification devices found at a recycling company in Medina were obsolete devices which had been legally auctioned.
Exactly what we're asking is, what is this sneaky behavior of the EC in auctioning sensitive election equipment and sending them to recycling plants that don't have specialized capacity to shred data-sensitive equipment like biometric verification devices? The EC, in an article, in a news item we saw, that is published on the Dome FM, claims that it auctioned just 10 devices. And the question is why? Why would anyone want to buy just 10 devices? And why would a commercial entity need 10 BVDs to recycle? Meanwhile, the records show that before the EC bought the brand new set of biometric equipment it used for the 2020 elections, they had 72,000 BVDs and thousands of BVRs. Those are the laptops for registering voters. Where exactly are those devices? the 71,990 BVDs, assuming that 10 have been sold, if all of them are considered obsolete, why then auction just 10? And also the quantities of the BVD machines in Imani's people's pictured, we realize, don't look like 10 devices. Are there any other entities in Ghana buying and discarding such large amounts of BVDs? Why did the boxes have EC insignia on them? Look, as a country and continent, we need to get serious and demand answers of leaders and not wait till things basically things fall apart before we do. Handing over thousands of devices holding the fingerprints and other vital particulars of millions of Ghanaians to uncertified facilities would in any country generate a massive uproar. Why are we always so relaxed about everything in this town? I think the EC needs to answer a lot of questions.
Now, students in second cycle institutions in the Upper East region have been trained on how they can help address climate change and promote peace in their communities ahead of this year's elections. The training was organized by the Ghana Youth Environmental Movement through the Climate Awareness and Peace Education Project. Correspondent Albert Sori has more.
The Ghana Youth Environmental Movement is a youth-led environmental policy advocacy and non-violence campaign group. Its core objective is to mobilize and organize young people to take action to solve the environmental challenges in their communities and also to address the global climate emergency. The Ghana Youth Environmental Movement is currently running a campaign called the Climate for Peace campaign, aimed at empowering young people to help address climate change and also to be advocates and promoters of peace, especially among the youth in their communities as Ghana goes into the general elections this year. As part of the campaign, a workshop was organized to educate students in second cycle institutions and other groups of young people in the Upper East region on issues of climate change and non-violence. The Upper East region was chosen for this event because it is one of the regions in Ghana worst affected by the impact of climate change and also has a few volatile areas. Gloria Ejari is the programs officer for the Ghana Youth Environmental Movement.
Young people are the future, and anything that happens today affects us and affects our future and affects the future of the next generation as well. And we believe that we are the right people with the energy. We are zealous enough, we have time, we have energy to run the change we want to see in society. If we want to create a sustainable environment and a sustainable world, we need to work with young people like myself and the others as well.
The Climate for Peace campaign is a component of the Climate Awareness and Peace Education Project funded by the Embassy of Denmark in Ghana, the West Africa Network for Peace Building, and supported by the Youth Harvest Foundation Ghana.
We know climate change issues can bring about conflicts. Currently in the region we have farmer-herder conflicts in some parts of the Upper East region. So that is why today we brought together these young people to help them to understand how climate change is affecting us and the need for us young people to also work to ensure a sustainable environment and peace in our region. So we are also going to raise public awareness on the need to plant trees and also support the youth together with the Forestry Commission to embark on some tree planting in some schools in the region.
The Ghana Youth Environmental Movement also presented a petition to the Upper East Regional Coordinating Council on how the government could partner with other stakeholders to tackle climate change. Some of the students who participated in the workshop shared their experiences.
I've really learned a lot. Even though I used to know about climate change, but I've learned other things aside of what I know. How we recycle our rubber bags and our poly bags around. I've learned a new way, that's to refuse, to reduce, to recycle and also to reuse.
And then also learn about conflict, that Ghana was there before political parties and Ghana will still continue to be there, and political parties, they will come, gain their power and they will move away, but Ghana will still be there. And we learn a lot of that. Conflict is one of the things which destroys our country and our development.
It is really good to come together as as one and fight corruption as our 2024 election is about to take place. And then not to be deceived by the candidates that will come to tell you that you should fight someone to make sure that he or she comes in power.
The two-day program ended with a march through the principal streets of Bolgatanga, with the participants displaying placards with various messages on climate change, as well as calls for peace in Ghana ahead of this year's elections. For Joy News, Albert Sori, Bolgatanga.
Now, the International Child Development Program, Ghana, has launched the Safe Start program at Kitase in the Akuapem South municipality with the introduction of portable ultrasound machines in rural communities. The initiative was in partnership with Ultrasound Consulting International USA in collaboration with the Ghana Health Service. The Safe Start program is an initiative to improve healthcare access and reduce preventable maternal deaths in Ghana through the use of diagnostic medical sonography. Country Director of ICDP Ghana, Joyce Lanyo, said the acquisition of the portable ultrasound machine represented a profound commitment to the well-being and dignity of every mother and child.
We came into a certain level of discussion and we chose to bring an ultrascan machine, a portable one. When you could tell it is a laptop, and the machine does not only check pregnancy and its related issues, everything about the human body. And the ultrasound machine, and for how we are now, so we live at piano, say at the piano, say ultrasound machine to see a show, and listen to what we are only and usually, and when you and and we see results no more. Now the common bring
And that's how we cap off the news this morning. But do stay with us. We're up next with the news review. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to get into the newspapers. It's time for the news review, and it's brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. What are they offering you? If you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. And their branches, many of them. Let me introduce you to them. Here in Accra, you can locate them at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronum, Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji Estate, Tema, Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiamanzama. The call lines 0244 867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But time now for the news review. I'm joined by the Country Director, International Child Development Program, Joyce Lanyo. She is my guest this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're looking resplendent in your outfit, and though they can't see your sneakers, I love them.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be here this morning.
It's been a while. We talk about different matters. It's been a while, but I guess this is your introduction to our new studio, right?
Yeah.
Is this your first time here?
Yes, this is my
What do you make of it?
Oh, awesome. It looks
more space.
More space, and you have that free space to be able to express yourself the way you want. The lighting and everything explicit. And we are very, very happy that we see a lot of progress, and we align ourselves to this kind of progress, and then hope that we'll be quite frequent here in your studio.
Amen. We hope so too. Even before I proceed, I'd just like to talk about something that happened yesterday. So I was going through Jomlu, For those of you who are very familiar with Jowulu, Bayere Junction. And guess what? Right at the turn from Bedita towards that turn where you would go towards Bayere Junction, I saw a huge plume. And I said, this can't be someone burning anything. A house is on fire or something. Truly, when I got there, a house was on fire. I don't know what material was in there, but something was popping. And you see, Ghana for you see a fire. Don't always be in a hurry to go very close to the fire. You don't know whether there's a gas cylinder or something in there for an explosion, you know? And some things started popping before people started running. But my main beef, and that place had a lot of wooden, you know, whatever, and it's close to someone's house. So you can imagine the sort of dilemma they were in. I will both salute the fire service. I know their constraints, but also bash them on another end. And here's why. I called 191 for a long time because as a good Samaritan, or at least if my house were on fire and I wasn't there, I would hope that someone would call, right? So that the fire service would come. I called and this line was on. I mean, it was playing those things when you are on hold or something for minutes. So I resorted to calling the hotline, and I'm going to put it out. Ghana Fire Service, if I am wrong or something, 0302-666-576. Just so you know I'm not, you know, up to any tricks. I called this number, you know, called. In the meantime, the place was getting burnt. Then finally, I reached someone who called a certain fire officer, and then the person called a certain number we found online, and that was only when we got a response that, oh, the fire service is actually coming. But imagine if they hadn't reached out earlier, and we were making the attempt. About 10 minutes, no response. That's time enough for someone's property to be burnt to ashes. So I think it doesn't have to happen to you before you realize how bad that situation is. Ghana Fire Service, I commend you because I went to get some medicine from a pharmacy in the area. By the time I returned, I realized that I wasn't seeing the plumes. True to, you know, my thoughts, I saw officers of the Ghana Fire Service. They had arrived because there's a place close by, Abelinkpe. They had arrived, the plumes were down, and I think they were trying to salvage what was left of the situation. But these hotlines, they are called hotlines for a reason. If we can't call them and get immediate action, it's a problem. This is fire we're talking about. So Ghana Fire Service, I commend you, but at the same time, Malines, you know, I think they need work. I know some people prank you with calls and all of that, but when the real thing is happening and people try to reach you and they can't, then I don't know what purpose that serves. Anyway, Joyce, I just had to put that out because yesterday I was distraught. I was imagining if this were my house and I was calling and no one was answering. Can you imagine how you would feel?
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate. I mean, I don't know whether it was Friday or Saturday. One of the staff of the Ghana Fire Service was expressing their lack of certain basic tools to enhance their work.
Yes, we're fully aware.
Vehicles breaking down, water hydrants being taken over, and other things. But I believe these are some of the issues they need to address and get ready for whatever service the citizenry is requesting for. So if you bring your issues to bear in the public domain, what can we do to support you? The authorities are there to give you the necessary resources that will enhance your work. So we want to plead that it's just heartbreaking to see a property on fire and then our fire service officers are not there or they delay. And you see it burning to maybe ashes. So we want to plead. And more so with we, the spectators, usually when things happen of the sort, you don't know the combustible that are coming out. And there could be an explosion that will throw you as an ordinary spectator away and then maybe suffer some injuries. So we want to plead with spectators or bystanders to be very careful in terms of getting close to such fires so that everybody remains safe. That awareness creation about certain fires are simply not there. So people converge and they try to use their personal initiative to quench the fire. Meanwhile, you don't have what it takes. So this also goes to our public to be very careful where there is fire outbreak, so that we take the necessary safety measures to protect ourselves from such tragedies.
Thank you, Joyce. And let's all be careful, because they say, "Sikaho ayadeng pa." You don't want to, if your house goes up in flames, it's a big matter. But usually on the show, we would do this, give about a minute for our guests on the news review to share their thoughts on something they are passionate about, something that is happening. If you gave me the opportunity, I would talk about Doomsday all day. But what is burning on your chest that you'd like to walk us through right before we get into the papers?
Right. Thank you very much. And I'm here to talk about the Safe Start initiative for rural women, which ICDP, in partnership with Ultrasound LLC Florida, have put together to support our rural women in terms of their health care. So we are introducing the portable ultrasound machine that we will carry to the doorsteps of these women to do their test, which has become part of their antenatal checks, the first trimester of the month and then the last trimester. Usually women in our rural communities will have to travel a distance to the hospitals to get this test done. And it involves a lot. So sometimes they are not able to go and they leave it to that. And we all know the effects of such decisions on pregnancies. So we saw this gap and we decided to look for partners who would support us, not with a big ultrasound machine that you usually go and see at the hospitals or in the diagnostic center, but a portable ultrasound machine that will help us go to the child welfare centers, the CHIPS compounds, and wherever the need is, so that women, instead of traveling to the district hospitals, will have access to this portable ultrasound scan machine for their pregnancy-related diagnosis. So they will travel the distance of pregnancy in safety and in the hope that their babies will be delivered very, very strong.
Well, thank you very much for that initiative. Kudos to you and your team. But let's quickly get into the papers now, make tracks. I have the Daily Guide, which I'm going to be starting with, the Ghanaian Publisher, and the Daily Searchlight. What do you have?
I have the Finder, the new Finder, and then the Custodian.
All right. So I will start with the Daily Guide newspaper. Nana Bawumia storm Ejisu. Help make 2024 elections peaceful, Akufo-Addo tells Yagbongura. Then MMDC's hail education transformation. Asante Hene at 25. Ghana Post to unveil special stamp. And NPA boss re-elected African Refiners Distributors president. So here's where I'm starting from, page 3. And President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia yesterday stormed Ejisu in the Ashanti region ahead of tomorrow's by-election. The two dignitaries addressed scores of NPP members and sympathizers separately at Onwe, Kwamu and Ejisu, where they urged the people to vote massively for the MPP's candidate, lawyer Kwabena Boateng. According to President Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia, the MPP candidate, who is an astute lawyer, is the perfect choice to continue with the good work of the late Ejisu MP, John Kuma. And Akufo-Addo, the president, said a few things that I'd like to reiterate. He says, Owusu has turned his back on the MPP. It's his right, but I'm surprised about his utterances. In 2008, MPP cabinet minister, he was the MPP cabinet minister and MP for Ejisu, and Eduomi defeated him. That was right for him to topple him. He was happy, right? But when Eduomi was also toppled, then he turned his back at the MPP and he's making wild allegations. Is that right? He goes on and on. But here's something, Joyce, that I'd like to run by you. I have seen this tape played a few times. In respect of Honorable Esiama, the Fomena MP. Oh, Jack went independent, won. And they had to caucus with him. In fact, he became second deputy speaker. He is second deputy speaker. On the back of that, his vote has been crucial as far as the MPP in Parliament has been concerned, especially with the knife edge, parliamentary numbers we have. The second one, Jachi Kwesen, again, The president himself, together with others, were there bad-mouthing him to the extent that the proclamation was made that, do you want to vote for someone who is a candidate for jail? Judge Kwesen won. He's in parliament. Again, we are here. I'm just saying, why can these bigwigs in the MPP not promote their candidate without necessarily trying to do this? Because the question is, what if Eduomi wins? Then will you try to bring him back into your fold? Will you try to let him caucus with you in parliament? Will you want him to work with you? You see, I think the antagonism is unnecessary, but maybe I am being a student of politics and maybe not thinking realistic politics. I don't know what you think.
Thank you very much. I'm neither a student of politics, but I mean, it's bare. The facts are bare that everybody has the right to stand for an election and then be voted for. And before that, there is a bit of campaign that you will have to do to draw the citizens' attention to why you should be voted for. And it's a universal thing that we engage in. And usually, because the NPP would like to break this 8, they are into doing all what they can to be able to come out as successful winners. But we have certain scenarios just right in our faces. The Fomina case is a typical one where the gentleman stiffened his neck to go, on a low range. And finally, he won. When he got to Parliament, because of the tie in terms of the numbers, they needed him to be on their side and all that. It took a lot of negotiation. It took a lot of, underground work to get this gentleman. So with this particular one, if we are to think about lessons that we are learning from Fomina, whatever it is, the gentleman should be given the free way to pose his candidature, convince the electorate for him to be voted for, rather than the whole structure of government descending.
President, vice president.
Yes.
All these bigwigs there. And people are asking, the NDC is not even contesting. Ejisu is practically a safe seat for the MPP. So why this? It must tell you that someone is quaking in his or her boots.
Well, so, and then certain statements that were made over there. I believe the president is our father, and where he's done his job. So the rest is for the citizenry of Ejisu to take that decision. But for the whole machinery to descend and certain statements being made to the extent that even the gentleman Eduomi was an NDC person. Well, it's politics, but I think it was just too much for Ejisu community to go through such. But we are all watching to see what will happen. If there's anything to go by, we have Fomina case as a learning point. So we are only praying that the election goes on well. The EC will give off its best in terms of transparency, and everything will go the way it should go. And the winner is the winner. There is nothing we can do about this. So we are only praying that the election goes on successfully, and then the winner is declared so that we move on with our lives.
All right. MMDCE's hailed education transformation and the transformation of the educational sector with emphasis on equipping students with technological skills and making them comfortable in intercultural and global communication has earned the plaudits of the metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives. According to the MMDCEs, the introduction of the 21st century education is giving students the skills they need to succeed in this new world and helping them grow the confidence to practice those skills. Now, speaking at a meeting with the Minister of Education, Dr. Yaw Educhum, in Kumasi last Friday, the development agency expressed their solid belief that Ghana's education was on the path to improvement, citing the level of investment in the sector since 2017. Of course, there's that latest report that pegs our educational level at a certain standard. The Ministry of Education has written to express their thoughts on it. There's also that concern about schools being painted blue and white, and there also has been some clarity. When the minister spoke, it was a blank check, but now there's been clarity that, oh no, it's not that we're going to paint all schools, but any other schools coming up and a few other things, yes, blue and white, and even the uniform will change. Some have asked whether that is the most important thing at this point in time. Any reactions to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the education minister is doing extremely well in terms of bringing the educational system to a certain level where STEM has been the focus, and most of these kids are being empowered to go into the STEM subjects and then be champions of their own. Issues around robotics and all that. However, for the schools to have this change of uniform, or certain schools having this change of uniforms to portray what I don't exactly know, and then, give them what it takes. Meanwhile, there are other schools next door that are going to be closed down for them to access this new school. The school uniform, the blue and the white. I'm looking at the current color, we call it konkonte and whatever.
Konkonte and abenkwa.
Yes. It suits our children because of the nature of our terrain, the dust, and the issues around having a very clean. The white and the blue. Well, the white is an issue. I have an issue with the white, the color white, and maybe the blue that could portray a certain party to say that, okay, they are the champions of this new initiative. Meanwhile, we have schools that do not have the necessary infrastructure, that do not have the teachers that would teach, that children are even lying on the floor. There are schools that have been left out there without, putting it for the other candidates to join these schools. It's very, very sad. If we are to meet our educational outcomes and then report appropriately to the United Nations on our SDG 4 indicators, I'm afraid we are almost at the tip to give this account, and yet we are looking at other things that wouldn't support our outcomes in terms of giving a report on our stewardship on the SDG, and then looking at our strategic plans or programs. So I really appreciate what our minister is doing. He's putting another phase or layer into our education system. But we have certain activities or certain issues that are outstanding in our. You go to other areas and you will cry. I think Joy FM or Joy News has aired some of the issues up north where children are all over the place, lying down, putting their heads on stones and all that. So we should look at our priority in terms of what we want to achieve, rather than looking at school blocks that will be used, brand new school blocks, and decommissioning. That's my worry. Decommissioning the old ones that are there to be used for what purpose or for what reason? So we want to plead that we appreciate the very good efforts of our minister. In fact, he's put a certain layer of awareness on issues around STEM, which is worldwide. However, some of these issues that will not contribute to our educational outcome or give us the opportunity to account of our stewardship in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is just right in the corner, 2030. We are in 2024. We have 6 years to give this account. I will plead that we should look at the issues of teacher deployment, where certain schools do not have enough teachers, especially in the rural communities, the teaching and learning materials that they need to support the learning in the classroom, and some of the infrastructure that are lacking.
Right. Well, curious, some of these developments, but interesting thoughts you had to share. Let's quickly do a few more stories from here. There's also, on the international front, Pope visits prison for women in Venice on first trip in months. Pope Francis on Sunday visited a prison for women in Venice ahead of a mass in the watery city representing the 87-year-old pontiff's first trip outside Rome for 7 months. Daily Guide, as far as Catholics are concerned, when you say mass, it must be a capital M, else it is not mass. It means something different. But the real stories I want to look at, Bawumia hits road today. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is also the presidential candidate of the ruling MPP in the December 2024 elections, will kickstart his campaign to become president today. The campaign, which begins in the eastern region, promises to be an issue-based one that will focus on cogent, practical, and tailor-made issues or ideas to deal with issues that are most dear to the Ghanaian people. I don't know whether he'll be sharing those thoughts as a driver's mate or as a would-be driver. I don't know which one. Then, help make 2024 elections peaceful, Akufo-Addo tells Yagbonwura. And President Akufo-Addo has called for the support of the overlord of the Gonja traditional area, Yagbonwura, Bikunuto Jewuswale I, to ensure that the upcoming 2024 general election ends peacefully and successfully. What I'll say in respect of that is that we must do everything possible to ensure that the peace we talk about is actualized in 2024. It's one thing talking. It's another thing putting in place the right mechanisms. For example, what Imani Africa's Bright Simmons, there have been talks about the BVDs and everything, and now some of more information we're getting and these being given out, if they've reached the end of their shelf lives, given out, to these third parties without any sureties about information being, taken care of, disposed of in the proper ways. We don't know. All those are things that are avoidable, things that ought to be avoided, because we are sitting on a knife edge. No one wants any problems. No one wants any issues with Ghana. So, I don't know, peaceful elections, but at the same time, there are underlying current issues to look at.
I think issues around the BVDs has come up severally, to the extent that a number of some of these BVDs got missing, and we did not know where they went to. And finally, we have some of these BVDs ending up as scrap for whoever to collect. And please, the EC will have to, because this is a very sensitive election that we are entering. So whatever people will do or the agency will do to bring doubt to their services, it has to be avoided. If there should be a disposal of these BVDs, I believe there's a better way with security men around to make sure they are disposed of in a manner that will be clear to citizens that this is it. We have disposed of it in a security or operative environment, and everybody is sure that it has been. And whatever, even the ashes will have to be collected and put somewhere. But to leave it for it to end up as scrap, and then people will get hold of it, and it puts the whole electioneering process into jeopardy. And so we want to plead that if such vital tools will have to be disposed of, there should be proper way documented that if BVDs get broken down and we have to dispose of them, these are the procedures under the eyes and watch of the various political parties, so that they are convinced within themselves that, this was the process that was used to dispose of these BVDs, rather than ending up in on a refuse dump somewhere, and people will be thinking, so is that the best way? And so what happens if somebody gets the memory or the software? What is going to happen and all that? I mean, we are entering into a very crucial period of election, and so we should make sure that all the processes are very clear, transparent, under a certain standard, so that if you lose, you appreciate the fact that you lost, and it's clear, rather than be doing things that will discredit the processes of running a free and fair election.
I'll just wrap with this, just because you brought that up. When you look at my next paper, the Ghanaian Publisher, it says we didn't spend $150 million on BVDs. That's according to the EC, saying debunking reports that it had spent $150 million to acquire new biometric verification devices and biometric voters registration kits, that is the BVRs, in 2020. The Commission, in a statement signed by Mr. Fred Tete, Deputy Director, Research, Monitoring and Evaluation at the EC, said it spent $68,661,912 as total cost for 74,500 BVDs, then 8,500 BVRs, a new data center, and a data recovery center. So at least that is the other side of, that is not the same in respect of the other issue, but it's the other side of the coin. Let's check out what papers you have. Which one are you starting with?
Yeah, so I'll start with the new finder.
Okay.
And it talks about the same Dr. Bawumia officially kick-starting his campaign today. And then we have the MPA boss retained as the ALDA president. And those are the major headlines. Ghana Post to unveil Asante commemorative stamp. And then for the custodian, we have Ghanaians praised by Umia for religious harmony. I mean, he visited the Pope, I think last week, and so the paper is trying to portray this religious tolerance in terms of our vice president, who is a Muslim, visiting the Pope, and it's something that I think is commendable. Yeah. And yeah, and the same Bawumia praise, Ghanaians praise Bawumia for religious harmony. So MPP whose voters in Ejisu for Kwabena Boateng. That's also something I think we spoke briefly about. And yeah, let's move to the next page. 10. Well, that's not a major news highlight that we want to go into. Zoom Lion acts on climate change and worker safety. And yeah.
So I also see the Bawumia campaign starting.
Yeah, I think it's taking
Let me ask you though, how do you feel about, some have said, I'm not necessarily here or there, but the vice president, who is flag bearer of the NPP, still doesn't have a running mate. April is practically ending. How many months left? You say you are not a student of politics like I am, and you are not maybe embedded in, the political processes. But what do you think about that? Some have thrown shots. Like I said, I'm neither here nor there. But what is your positioning on that?
I think where we are, and then looking at the time frame to the general election in December, it's time for Dr. Bawumia to come out with his running mate and then get the whole process kick-started. Because he cannot do this alone. People say, oh, he will be the president, so he will carry all the decisions and the policies for Ghanaians to work with. But you need a vice president to support the work that we are going to do. And as at now, April, and very soon we'll hit December, and we don't have his running mate. It's a bit of an issue.
I don't think that will happen, though. I'm sure by May, thereabouts, there should be someone who would be put forth. What it makes, though, is it gives you food for thought about whether, this is a party that is touted, we have the men, and by extension, the women. And the question is, and I've heard some women groups lobbying now that get us a woman as well as running mate and all of that. But then with the MPP's governance and how some of the people who have come to the fore cry, you realize that if they were to handpick some of these people, there would be a whole lot to talk about when it comes to these people. I think that is a difficulty for the party.
Yes, I agree with you. They have the men, like they say, or the women, but it's come to the crunch where there is the Muslim divide, then the Ashanti caucus also pushing for their own, coming from Kumasi to be the vice president, and other interest groups. They are in a dilemma, if you ask me, because it's been quite a time now since Dr. Bawumia was elected as the running president.
Running mate. Okay, so he's actually the flag bearer.
Yeah, the flag bearer.
He's looking for his running mate.
Yeah, so it's worrying, but we pray that they bring out the name soon, and then we all rally around and see how best we can support the process to make it much more transparent. That's all we in the civil society we're looking for. Okay. And then we'll continue with our development agenda, and things that have not been well considered in this last regime will be captured very well so that we make process in our development process. But there is one thing that talks about Akufo-Addo Commission's 15 MW solar power. That I think it all boils back to the issue around Dumso. My brother, we are in crisis with this Dumso. People from various quarters have spoken about a timetable so that we can plan whatever we are doing. For example, where I came from this morning, we had about 3 separate doom, and doomso 3 times, not considering the effect on our gadgets and all that. So I want to plead that if we have the solar system also in place to support whatever the power producers are doing, we will be far, far better. And I'm looking at this solar system with a bit of subsidy because we have the sun, so that we can all tap in, and when there is doom, we have our personal saw, and then we put it on, and life becomes comfortable. Right. Otherwise, it's a challenge for all of us as we sit here and then we speak.
Well, Joyce, we do have to go now. I'll just leave you with some thoughts on this, and you can share your thoughts. The Daily Searchlight published full KPMG report. NDC Minorities says so. The media has asked for it. Civil society has asked for it. There's also veteran broadcaster Joe Latte passes on, aged 96. May his soul rest in perfect peace. He's done his bit. He's done so much for Ghana. I remember the last time, I think that last interview with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, and here we are at 96, the ripe old age of 96, he's gone. But on that KPMG bit, Bright Simmons has also been saying SML deal was simply an upgrade of the Ejapa royalties deal. We don't have time to get into it, but in about 1 minute maximum. What's your take on this? Then we have.
Well, my take as a public interest person is for them to publish their reports so that we know exactly what the report entails, and if so much profit has been made, good. If there were also gaps, we identify the gaps, and then we try to work on it, ameliorate, and get a good deal for Ghanaians, rather than saying this and that, yet we do not have the report on our hands to also peruse it and come out with what we think could have been done better.
All right. Thank you so much, Joyce Lanyo, for joining the conversation. I just got this one coming through. Happy birthday to Jaden Enumonyam Otutu Owusu Odame. So, Jaden, may you be the head and the first among your peers in Jesus' name. May you be exceptionally outstanding and the brightest among your contemporaries in Jesus' name. Above all, may you be a joy to behold unto your family and generation in Jesus' name. Outshine and glow, son. Cheers. And that is a message coming through. So, Jaden, happy birthday to you. As we go veer into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. And they're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches across Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma, Buehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22 actually. Then there's also Techiman Hansua and Esiama Enzema. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next Tuesday.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports. Here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Dreams FC's fairy tale journey in the CAF Confederation Cup came to an end on Sunday when they lost 3-0 to Zamalek at Abawayara Sports Stadium. The Still Believe boys had secured a 0-0 stalemate in the first leg in Cairo, but lost 3-0 in the second leg to end their journey of reaching the final of this year's CAF Confederation Cup. Despite the result ending their journey in this year's CAF Confederation Cup, head coach of the team, Abdul Karim Zito, says he's not disappointed with the performance of his team.
Well, I think who brought in was Atuoko to be able to win. So when you look at the first half, the chances we missed, and we went back and they came. So it's like the more they were trying to do it, and the attitude was coming down. You see, because a lack of focus, that did not earn a goal. So to me today, I'm proud of my boys. Nobody thought we'd reach here, and I'm very, very happy. Yes, we meet an experienced team. Definitely, this is how it will go. We are young boys, but we meet. This is an experience. Next time when we come in, we know how to go about it.
And aside everything that you have picked up, what also are you picking up from all this campaign?
Well, there's a lot. I'm picking up a lot professionally. We should behave like professionals. We should know how to treat certain situations around in the sports. You understand me? Look at what happened before we came here. So to me, I've learned a lot of lessons that I'll impart it to the sports people in future. Because if I get the opportunity, I'll start from my day one to where I've reached today, so that it will change for the betterment.
In the Ghana Premier League, Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Mediama FC played out a 1-1 stalemate in Takwa, and Brekum Chelsea came up against Legon Cities.
Cross into the 18-yard box. Oh, that's the first goal. That is the first goal. Fed on target without any question. The Reds have silenced the yellow and mauve. Mukwala rising to the occasion. Unmarked. Got his head to it. Clear target in front of him. And he rose high. He got to the ball first. He noticed that Felix Che had committed himself off the line and put it. Henry Ansu was sportingly trying to get him. The player goes down again, and this time Osa Bernardino's trickery and effectiveness pays off. Referee blows his whistle. Diawusie Taylor is there. Diawusie Taylor sent Frederick Asari the other way. It's not worked, but they have yet another opportunity. This time will he go for glory? Solid drive, and then that was so unlucky. Oh, they really deserve to get that goal. They're back in the game. I'm just surprised. Kwame Aziz. But then it's Legon Cities. They definitely would want to have the last hurrah. Oh, they must have left everything till the last minutes of the game. And he's behind the ball. So Shaibu Haruna. Oh! Into the top corner. Super goal. And this is a goal scored from intelligence and experience. Legon City's on the offensive. Crosses deep. Oh! Can you really understand the game of association football? Frederick Akatuk again.
Welcome back on the AM show. We delve into the big story, starting with the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, which is trying to assuage fears that pension benefits of workers would be in limbo, literally, by 2036, as indicated by an actuarial study of the International Labour Organization. But the question is, what are the facts? Are the SSNIT reserves depleting or not? Are they making good returns from the investments they use our money for? Is government fulfilling its obligations to SSNIT as well? And should we be concerned in any way? Well, this morning we have a raft of guests we've put together to help us deal with the issues. Starting with the studio, I have in here Professor Lord Mensah. He's Associate Professor at the University of Ghana Business School. And of course, he is trained in actuarial science. So we'll be getting quite the scoop from him. We also have Dr. Yao, Secretary General, Trades Union Congress. We have joining the conversation as well, Dr. Kwabena Donko. He, of course, is on that committee in Parliament, State-Owned Enterprises, and Rev Isaac Owusu, President of NATS, the Ghana National Association of Teachers. I know we have Rev Isaac Owusu. Good morning, sir. Rev, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me also check whether we have Dr. Kwabena Donko yet. Do we have Dr. Kwabena Donko? Dr. Donko,
yes,
can you hear
please.
me? Okay. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. And then in the studio, Professor Lord Mensah. Prof, I said, Nadia, you've done some magic. Usually we don't find you in the studio. You're on Zoom, but today we are seeing you here in the flesh.
Clearly.
Thank you for coming.
Things have changed one way or the other.
So, gentlemen, just hold for me because Prof has that background in actuarial science. I would want him to situate the conversation for us. Recently, we heard from the ILO stating that, listen, things are not very well with SSNIT and that come 2036, all of this could go under. There are different breakdowns to what they said. But having read that statement and juxtaposing that with your expertise in actuarial science, what is your fundamental understanding of what is happening? Is the ILO getting it right? Are they missing something? Is SSNIT getting it right?
Well, I mean, the picture is clear. I mean, if you take every pensions, once the economy is suffering, pensions also suffers. Let me put it this way. You see, over the past years, government had a freeze in employment. And pensions normally survives on membership contribution and investment. I mean, we can break the investment down into financials, non-financials, real estate, and all those, assets that the pension fund can own. Now, effectively, if you look at, the past, 10 to 15 years, that government has freezed, employment. I mean, it makes the pension a bit, a bit shaky, in the sense that even if there's employment, which will build up into membership contribution, it turns out to be limited. And so you ask yourself the consistencies, and I'm trying to situate this, to, the economic performance. When you look at unemployment, see, I did a work with some of my students, kind of a survey, and we realized that a typical Ghanaian, right, who has, finished university, has to wait for about 10 years before he settles on a job. Before the 10 years, yes, before the 10 years,
10 years, wow.
Before the 10 years, that, person's job is inconsistent. So you see him going on and off of on a job, trying to find some studies to do and all those. All these things are things that clearly affect membership contribution. And so when you put all together, and if you take the pension space in this country...
So it even means that by the time the person starts contributing...
he's already exhausted a chunk of his time. He has only 20 years on the job to contribute. Right. And that affects the pensions as well, the longevity. And then also, whilst, things are deteriorating on the economic side, people are becoming aware of themselves. So the life expectancy, if you look at, the past years, it was around 58. Now it has moved to 62 on the average. So that tells you that people are living longer. And so if you have a pension structure where those who are supposed to, feed into it are not there, and then those who are, supposed to, be paid pensions are living long, then you're going to have, a problem.
You'd have a crisis on your hand because not enough people are contributing.
More or less.
And more people are also
exactly
going to be
surviving for long.
Relying on that.
So we call something longevity risk. Let me correct you. You mentioned that, to actuarial science. I taught in the actuarial science department at the university. My background is financial mathematics. And my PhD is in applied economics. Then I have big eyes for some of these things because of the background. Now, when you, look at the structure and then also the economic performance, clearly it will affect, pensions. Because if you disaggregate membership contribution, and the ILO's report clearly, specify that, pensions in this country, I'm talking about SSNIT, is at risk because when you look at the benefit that is supposed to be paid and then cost of operations, put that together and then match it up with, membership contribution, you realize that the two is more than, the membership contribution. And pensions does not survive when you are using investment income to pay for this pay-as-you-go indicators, i.e., the benefit you're supposed to pay, and then, the operations. We normally use members' contributions for this, operations and then, pay-as-you-go expenditures. So if it turns up that you have to fall on your investment that you are doing to come and pay some of these operation costs and then, regular pensions, benefits that you have to pay, then it makes, the pensions quite, risky. If you put all together, you come to appreciate that even the pay slip that we have in this country also makes the pensions quite a bit risky. The reason why I'm saying, yes. So
and maybe that'll be your final point before I go to the other.
Yes, if you take my pay slip, for instance, a typical pay slip of a government worker, that allowances are more than, the basic that is pensionable. So if you take, someone's basic, the basic could be around maybe 2,000 Ghana cedis. But allowances is around 3,000. So something like cost of living, allowance, it may not be subject to tax. It may not be subject to pensions, sorry. And so effectively, you will come to realize that the pensionable fund that the person is owed, which reflected in the, the ILO report. Right. The report indicates that they have to make sure that they consolidate, salaries, including allowance, so that they can put the pension, they can affect the pensions percentage on that together. But if it turns up that it's only your basic that you are paying pensions on, and then your allowances you are not paying pensions on, by the time you go on pension, your contributions is very, very minimal compared to the entire amount that you've received throughout your working life. So effectively, it turns up that the way we have structured some of I'm not going down to the governance structure of SSNIT, right? Which can also affect the pensions. So effectively, I will tell you that yes, indeed, our pensions is at risk because building up into the future, we are paying more on benefits and then cost of operations than membership contributions.
All right, thank you. So benefits, cost of operation, rather than a focus on beneficiaries, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so you agree with the ILO report that we are at risk?
Yes, we are.
All right. You would notice, and coming to the rest of our guests, there's also a pensions expert who has been speaking to us in recent times, and he says the future of pensions in Ghana is gloomier than portrayed by the ILO. So for this pensions expert, it is even worse. I'm talking about Masood Abdallah, who is a pensions expert. But let me come to the rest of my guests. Rev Owusu, you are president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Just how worried are you about this? Masood says it is even gloomier than the ILO paints it. Prof is in the studio, and he says that is the reality. Our pensions are at risk. How do you feel about all this? Rev Owusu.
I don't know whether you can hear me because my system is breaking.
I can hear you loud and clear. I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. So I think the reports from the ILO to the Board of Trustees of SSNIT should be a great concern to every worker in Ghana, because the reports reveal certain things that as workers we should be concerned. Apart from the government indebtedness, the second revelation is about the prudent investment that SSNIT ought to do. Now, the third one, which affects the worker and the worker must be concerned, is the insurable earning, which is very, very, very low. If you juxtapose these three revelations, it tells you that as workers, we must be interested and concerned of this particular report. And I am happy in no time soon, the organized labor will be meeting to look at the way forward. Because then, if you are a worker, let me take a teacher for instance. There is no single teacher, or maybe those who are on the spine salary structure, there is no single social allowance that has been consolidated with the insurable earnings. So if you take a teacher who is on maybe assistant director 2, his or a pay slip, if averagely this teacher is with a basic salary of 4,000, maybe 400, then this teacher is paying 5%, 5.5% of his salary, which is about 244 Ghana cedis to SSNIT, because in totality, our SSNIT percentage is 18.5%. And out of this 18.5, government is supposed to pay 30. America pays 5.5. Now, in this 18.5, 11% is the one that goes to SSNIT, which is the tier 1. And 5% goes to tier 2. And the remaining 2.5 now goes to the NHIS scheme. So you could clearly see that how can workers be working in Ghana when there is no single, I'm talking about, I'm using the teachers as a reference because that is the group I lead. There is no single teacher in Ghana who is receiving a social allowances that has been consolidated into our SSNIT. And this should be a great worry to us as workers. So I believe that this report has come and it is in the interest of the social partners, including the management and the board of SSNIT, to look at this report and put in place measures that will help us cure some of this alarming situation.
Thank you for those initial thoughts. Let me bring in Dr. Akufo-Addo. Doc, so you sit on that committee in Parliament, which also has oversight of the state-owned enterprises, among others, including SSNIT. What was your initial reaction to this? What information have you gleaned so far? And how concerned are you? Dr. Donko, that question is for you, if you can hear me. Hello. Dr. Akufo-Addo. Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes. I was saying that I'm surprised. It just means we do not read or we do not take financial statement seriously. At 53.28.
Dr. Akufo-Addo, we are struggling to hear you. Your connection is not that good.
Actuarial.
Doc, if you can hear me, we're struggling to hear you. The connection is not that good. So we'll try to reconnect.
I can hear you clear.
Yes, but when you talk, it comes in bits and pieces. It's patchy. Let's try this again and see whether from the top and see whether we can.
Okay, is it better?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I was saying that I'm quite surprised. If people read the financials of SSNIT year after year, they will not be surprised. It just shows that there's a lot of financial illiteracy in the body politic. Article 53 of the National Pensions Act, Act 766, requires external validation by an external actuary. Indeed, if you look at the 2022 FAGO, 3 ILO external actuaries came to the conclusion that the scheme in its present form is unsustainable and that certain measures must be taken. And indeed, from what I sit, I'm waiting to see the 2023 financials. In terms of the 2022 financials, there was a vast improvement on 2021. In 2021, SSNIT recorded a net deficit. In plain terms, a net loss of 301 million.
Doc, we're losing you a bit.
First of all,
SSNIT recorded a net loss of how much?
SSNIT is not. A net loss 301 million cedis in 2021 and made a net profit of 230 million in 2020, which was an improvement. But that's just
okay, Doc. Unfortunately, the connection is a bit bad, and you see, you are putting out information. We have to hear everything correctly. So I'll leave it to my director and producer to sort it out so that we can get you back on and we can have you without any issues. But let me come back into the studio. When you look at some of the information that has been put out by the ILO, let's walk through some of them. The ILO suggests that SSNIT reserves are depleting, that total income will no longer be sufficient to make or to pay beneficiaries by 2036. It says the total indebtedness to SSNIT as of the 31st December 2021 stood at 9.35 billion Ghana cedis. That's a lot of money. If you look at how much ordinarily, averagely, the average Ghanaian is getting as pensions. I'm not talking about the top tier people. I'm talking about the average people. Then it also says that late payment by government to SSNIT is about 6.9 billion. That is 73.7% of total indebtedness to SSNIT. It also makes mention of the fact that the late payment of SSNIT contribution leads to a 1.3% drop in investment returns each year because the rollover to SSNIT is late. And then government shifts an important part of cost to the private sector by late repayment. It also says SSNIT needs to adopt a proper funding policy. I'll come to you on that. Allowances should be included in pension contributions and stop adjusting pensions according to salary growth and instead adjust according to inflation. These 3 points, I want your quick takes on them because I feel they are crucial to the work of SSNIT and there's a problem there. What is your take?
Yes, so I'll take the latest one, which you talk about indexing pension payment to inflation rather than
salary growth.
Salary growth. You see, you are looking at the purchasing power of this pensioner, right, who comes out of, job. Let's assume, normally I disaggregate pension not to look at them together in aggregation. If you look at them in aggregation, SSNIT will always tell you that we are doing well, because they don't see, the basics and then the bits and pieces of individuals who are going on pension. Let's assume that you've contributed 1 million Ghana cedis for going on pension. That is what you've accumulated.
Right.
And then a percentage of it is given to you as a gratuity, which you take home as a pensioner. And then the rest is left, SSNIT to invest on your behalf so that they can be paying you your pensions, as
over time.
For
as long as you live.
You live, yes. But then we are looking at a maximum of 20 years after your pension.
Right.
Which the model expects you to exit. So effectively, and
even there, what it means is where the model expects you to exit.
Yes.
If you don't, it means that's further strain on the system.
Exactly, yeah.
And do they have the
That's where they have the longevity. That's where the reserves thing comes in. Right. That is why, the report is emphasizing on reserves. Because if you don't have much reserves and it turns up that you have more people living long, as I earlier submitted, clearly it affects the shape of the pensions and the performance of the pensions.
So on that point, before you go on, when SSNIT responds and says pension payments are not funded by reserves, are they shooting themselves in the foot?
Well, they do, because clearly the reserve serves as a buffer. It serves as an insurance, for the pensions itself. So if, your buffer or your future is being depleted, then obviously 10 years, 12 years from now, you're going to struggle. And especially when I've told you that the contributions are not coming as expected. Meanwhile, operations cost is increasing. Because if you look at the governance structure of SSNIT, up to even a deputy director has now been politicized. I don't want to go to the governance structure. Right. So it's having a toll on what is being contributed and investment income. And if you ask them, they should testify that, they've been using investment income to finance some of these, activities, operational activities, which has to do with, pension payment and then operational costs. Now, I was driving at a point, which you came in. Let me finish that point. If you take a typical Ghanaian who contributes, let's say, 1 million, Ghana cedis. Part of it given to him as a gratuity, and then part he keeps it himself and then invests into something else. Now you realize that because we don't have much financial, know-how, these pensioners will also take that little that they have and then go invest in government bonds. So the exposure to a typical, pensioner as far as government investment is concerned is so huge because he's more or less subjecting his life to government investment.
Right.
And then the little that is, the pension fund is keeping, that is SSNIT is keeping, per the regulations, minimum of 70% of that is in government instrument. So a typical Ghanaian or a worker is well exposed as far as...
Now we see what has happened to our financial system and even the bonds that government...
So if you have a pension structure where the reserves is depleting, then there's a serious problem.
Is that where we are?
That's where we are. That's what the report is saying.
Hold for me. Let me bring back Dr. Akufo-Addo. My apologies, the connection wasn't helping us. You were making a point about the exposure of SSNIT and the net losses. You can start from there, Dr. Akufo-Addo.
Yes, sir. I was saying that I am very surprised that people are surprised. It just means we do not read financial statements. For the last 6-7 years, and indeed, the warning started from 2016. In every year, as a result of the requirement of the Pensions Act, Act 766, external actuaries validate the sustainability of the scheme. And in the last reporting year available, 2022, the 3 actuaries, ILO actuaries, stated that the scheme was not sustainable. In 2022, compared to 2021, there was a positive turn in terms of SSNIT's performance. SSNIT had, over the last couple of years, put in some measures to turn around the organization financially. But there are structural weaknesses that we cannot run away from. The structural weaknesses include the need to put so much money in government bonds and security. That is a structural weakness. The other structural weakness is the appointment of the management of SSNIT. We have a very recent case when the son of Osafo Mafo has been made the Director General.
But you didn't have a problem he was there for many years, even before he was a deputy. And then now he's been,
he was parachuted
given a promotion.
He was parachuted in as a deputy at the time when the state said there was no competitive employment, there was no search process. He was parachuted in. And if you even look at the circumstances leading to the departure of the immediate Director General, for the first time,
Dr. Tenkron,
for the first time, government had the need to come back to say, oh, yes, even though we asked him to go, he didn't do anything. That in itself should tell you something. But coming back to one of the things SSNIT has been doing positively in recent years is the extension of the contribution to the informal sector. And if you look at the data, there's been good growth in that. That is the way forward. And as the population ages, remember our birth rate is also coming down statistically. As the population ages and we live longer, the burden on pensions is going to be huge. So for our committee, we are looking at the structural issues. Only 11% out of the 18.5 actually goes to SSNIT.
Right.
Then more importantly, and I blame organized labor for this. Organized labor is too interested in allowances at the expense of basic salaries. It's been too easy to placate organized labor with one-off allowances.
And the allowances will not be factored in because that's one of the ILO recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is grievous in terms of the structure. Then, of course, the management of SSNIT. SSNIT has gone into hospitality, but the returns from hospitality has been negligible. It's gone into real estate. Indeed, part of the current problem SSNIT has is they need to restructure their portfolio. They may have to let go of some of their investment in real estate and put such returns into areas that come with appropriate returns. It is in this area that the governance issue plays out major. The need for transparency, the need to communicate to contributors. And then last but not least, I'm surprised, the government indebtedness, and especially interest and penalties, it's about 20 billion. If you look at the SSNIT Act as amended, and then if you calculate the interest on delayed payments and the penalties, it's about 20 billion from the Ghanaian State Controller and Accountant General. Yes, Controller and Accountant General can negotiate a payment, but they have hardly done that timeously. So ultimately, the Ghanaian state may have to bail out SSNIT because the Ghanaian state caused the problem in the first instance.
Okay.
And so for us as a committee, of which I'm the ranking member, our focus has been getting SSNIT to operate as a commercial entity with social welfare responsibility.
Right.
You need to generate the resources commercially in a prudent and less risky manner, but you have social responsibility for pensions. And that is the challenge that we must look at. Yes, the future, if we do not do anything, will be bleak. But if we take the corrective steps, we can turn it around.
So let me come to Rev Isaac Owusu on this point. How confident are you then in the scheme? But before you even address those concerns, you hear the ranking member on that committee of Parliament, Dr. Akufo-Addo, saying that he partly blames you, organized labor, among others, for looking too much at allowances at the cost of real salaries, because you know that these allowances are not factored into your pensions. And in fact, it is one of the recommendations made by the ILO where it says stop adjusting pensions according to, in fact, no, allowances should be included in pension contributions. But as of now, that is not being done. So how do you respond to that?
No, whether you can hear me, because
I can hear you.
A serious challenge with my network. Because I'm talking to you without light, so it's very difficult.
Oh, sorry. The doom so there, it's a general situation. I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Well, I think in my initial comment, I admitted that, yes, looking at the recommendation from the ILO, it tells us clearly that as organized labor, we need to set up and reposition our strategy in the way we approach pensions in this country. You see, we've been lamenting, most especially on the single spine salary structure. And I think somewhere last year, but last 2 years also, when the labor minister set up a conference for all workers in Ghana, in Eastern region, and there was a proposal for a committee to be put in place to look at the single span salary policy and review it. I think going forward, I am happy because I was briefed by my general secretary that organized labor will be meeting. So, but one thing that I also want to put before my comrade Dr. Akufo-Addo is that, you see, we all have shared responsibility. It cannot be said that only organized labor should be blamed. We are together. We are social partners. Parliament has a key role to play through the oversight committee. So we should all be policing and making sure that SSNIT is doing what's expected of us. Because we, as organized labor, even though we have our members on the board, but we should be able to have a responsibility among the social partners to make sure that we are working towards to improve the report that has come, not to blame one or the other.
Okay, thank you for those points. Before I come back to you, gentlemen, and take your recommendations, final thoughts, I'd like to come back to you, Dr. Kwabena-Donkor. How do you respond to that? Because I was also going to ask that, listen, you sit on that committee in Parliament. You are ranking member on that committee. How much has gone into trying to streamline the activities of SSNIT, trying to get them back? You say for about 6-7 years, they have sort of been off track, apart from, I think, around 2021, 2022, where there were some improvements, or 2023. So what have you done as a committee to prevent this from happening?
Well, remember, we only have oversight responsibility as a legislature.
How have you exercised that oversight responsibility?
We make our recommendations on the floor of Parliament. It is the executive arm of government that has the responsibility of managing and running SSNIT.
Are you saying you are powerless? Are you saying you are powerless?
No. I said we make our recommendations. And indeed, one of the things that has come arisen out of our recommendations and our interaction with the management of SSNIT is the need to place emphasis on the informal sector. And so if you look at the growth of contributions from the informal sector, it's the biggest area of growth. And that addresses the medium to long-term issue of contributions. There are two systems. You either pay pensions from returns on investment, which is hardly enough anywhere in the world, or current contributors pay for the pensions of previous contributors. That is that. But you see, let me disagree with my NAT comrade. When they are organized labor is negotiating, Parliament doesn't come in. So you must know what you are negotiating for. If you go and negotiate for more allowances, it goes ipso facto that you are going to lose out in real pensions once you retire. And that is when you are most vulnerable. So it is critical for all of us, first of all, to see the SSNIT as a non-government entity. That is the critical, for me, that is the critical position we have to look at. SSNIT must be seen as a national asset, not a governmental asset. And so even the appointment of management, we will have to take a second look at it as a people. Do we continue allowing the presidency to appoint director generals and deputy director generals? Is that the best option for us?
What is your proposal? What is your proposal on that? How do we go about it?
Well, first of all, there's a Public Services Commission. There should be a competitive recruitment policy. Let's get the best people with track record, people who understand it, and let's remove the political filter around SSNIT. That SSNIT should run as an autonomous institution. Technically, SSNIT is only a state-owned institution because the Ghanaian state underwrites SSNIT. When SSNIT is unable to pay pensions, it will become the burden of the Ghanaian state to pay. We must have that at the back of our minds. So it is in our collective interest to ensure that SSNIT runs well, of very sound financial, and also we should take a second look at our decisions as they affect pensions.
Okay.
And that is so critical. If you restrict your SSNIT investment to 70% of government securities and bonds, when the government is failing, the scheme automatically fails. And when government refuses to pay on time, and that is one of the challenges that SSNIT has had, and the immediate Director General has been up in arms on that. Government paying on time, and when government does not pay on time, imposing the appropriate penalties. Government is an employer, like any other employer. So government should not be treated separately when it comes to pension contributions.
Okay. Thank you for those thoughts. So let me come into the studio as we start winding down on the conversation. What then, I mean, bluntly, first off, is SSNIT sustainable or not? Just give me your blunt thoughts before I...
As we speak now, it doesn't look well. I mean, it's not sustainable.
On a scale of 1 to 10, from where you sit, what you know,
I would say...
How sustainable is it?
I would say 3.
3 out of 10?
Yes, in a sense that when you have a pension structure where your contributions are not forthcoming, and then your operation cost is going up, and then, pensions that you're supposed to pay are still going up, then to the extent where you have to feed on your, income on interest, then it becomes a problem. Let me jump in a bit on the allowances that have swelled up on payslips across the country. The secret is that when, labor is going for negotiations, normally they go at the receiving end. Since we started the single spine, you realize that negotiations, normally happens at various labor units. So UTAG will go for their negotiations, NAT will go for their negotiations. And anytime they go, government, instead of looking at a single spine structure, because a single spine structure constitutes the basics. So if government should increase maybe basics for, teachers, per the single spine structure, it has to cut across.
Right.
So government doesn't want to do that because they're looking at the cost of, increasing salaries by maybe a certain margin across all workers in the country. So what they do is that when you go for negotiations, they couch something to suit you. So possibly for, lecturers, they will say, okay, fine, you have, cost of living allowance. For other units, they will catch something to suit your specification. And as a result of that, every single negotiations, labor will go, various units will go, government tends to put up the increment on allowance without touching on the main salary that are pensionable.
Right.
So effectively, that also compromises, the pension's future. If you take, a typical pension in Ghana, where, like I mentioned earlier, government has not been employing over the years, and the private sector contribution is minimal. SSNIT did an exercise recently where they've been, encouraging the private sector to, to join the pension pool. But then, if you look at the structure, you realize that it's the government contributors that constitute the largest chunk. And as a result of that, if their, contributions are mainly on, their basic salary, which is stagnated, but then you have allowances that, tends to increase, it affects contribution.
So you're taking the allowances to the detriment of your
future. Yes,
if you don't use those allowances, let's say you are not salting away that money, and you are using it...
Then you are in trouble as an individual.
Some 10, 15, 20 years
of course, you will not take much pension. So most government workers' pensions are something not to write about. Yes.
Interesting. And any final thoughts on this? These are your final words.
Well, I think there's a way out. Usually when pensions is suffering like this, either you increase contributors, which i.e. you may have to
expand the net.
That is what SSNIT has been doing. Another thing is to increase, the age limit. When people go on pension. So for instance,
maybe we can push to 65?
65 or possibly, 70. And then if the economy...
Will 70 not be a stretch?
Well, for some of the jobs like lecturing and all those, the brain normally is still active when...
Because I'm also looking at life expectancy in Ghana.
Of course, but then it's an average number. Some live beyond that.
Right.
So from where I see, these are the two ways of solving. And then, the governance structure. The one thing I've realized is that management sometimes are removed when government changes. So, for instance, you will see a deputy director of investment being removed and being replaced by, the government of the day, a person from, the ruling administration. When it happens, it becomes a problem. The person who is being removed, sometimes we may have to sacrifice SSNIT resources to pay a compensation so that he goes off the scene and the government replaces, his, person in there to take over. So when it happens like that, you increase operational cost. These are things that obviously you may overlook by thinking, okay, fine, SSNIT is huge. And then, therefore, when you kick out a manager that you may have to pay him, a compensation to just leave the scene, you may think it's just a small amount. But the aggregation of some of these activities tends to affect, the fund.
I see.
So SSNIT has been overly politicized, let me put it that way. And as a result of that, it's affecting the way they operate. And that is why the government sometimes can delay. I mean, the contribution, members' contributions. And, there are no charges here and there. But under normal circumstance, when government delays contributions up to a certain number of days, I mean, there should be interest charges on what government pays back to the fund. So I think we are compromising on so many things, which is, more or less affecting the fund one way or the other. And we need to sit up as a country.
And those compromises obviously include those appointments. Do you think we can get past, looking at our political situation, do you think we can get past political appointments into SSNIT? And I'm not just talking about SSNIT. I'm talking about our state-owned enterprise.
So this was something I was discussing with somebody yesterday. We've been overemphasizing on the state-owned pensions so much. I think it's about time we encourage the private sector to come in.
But we already have tier 2, tier 3.
We have them, but then at the end of the day, I'm talking about a tier 1. Yes, it's about time we...
Tier 1 must also be...
Yes, it's about time we find a way...
In other words, privatized.
More or less.
We should privatize tier 1.
Yes.
SSNIT shouldn't be
if you look at,
the hegemon over tier 1 pensions.
Monopolize the space as, we have now. We should allow the private man to come in. Because if you look at SSNIT, historically, all the assets they've owned across the country, those are assets that you cannot boast of a lifespan of more than 10 years. I ran through their website, watched their flats they've put up and all those. And they themselves testify that some of the investment they did in the real sector did not, provide the dividend.
In other words, bad investment.
Bad investment, one way or the other. And it all comes as a result of, the governance structure. And so I think it's about time we have a look at it, the entire,
My final bit to you, you look at when SSNIT was set up, the rationale behind setting up SSNIT, and everything in between. You gave them a score of 3 over 10 in terms of sustainability. Would you say then that SSNIT has failed?
Well, one way or the other, if you have a fund that tends up to look into future and that it's not sustainable, it's a failure. Yeah, it's a failure. I think the motive and objective of establishing SSNIT, we've gone past that. Gone were the days government was, the sole employer of labor in this country. And so government turns around to, find a way to, take membership contribution and then turns it around and then pay them, protect their future here and there. But now private sector is dominating in employment space. So why would you continue to allow, SSNIT, which is, government dominated, to continue to hold up, pensions?
Right. Let me come to Rev Isaac Owusu, president of GNAT. What then is the way forward from where you sit? What would be your recommendations? At least you admit that your grouping, together with organized labor, also have a problem. You tend to accept allowances at the detriment of future gains from pension. But what do you think is the way forward?
The way forward is that, one, the board of SSNITs and the management should be able to be proactive in collecting the money that government is owing. That is number one.
The 9-point-something billion. If it were that easy, they would have taken it all. Right.
No, but you see, man, if it is not easy, then they should let us know. The board and the management should let the workers that are contributing know. You see, when this issue came up, the management quickly issued a statement.
Right.
A rejoinder.
Yes, a rejoinder. Meanwhile, the issues that we are discussing are factual. So we have put you there to work in our interest. So if the government is not listening and it's proving difficult, and you don't tell me, the worker, to take the legitimate action against the government, then are you helping me or you are getting problem for me? So that one, please, is no excuse. They must. If the government is unable to give them the money, they should tell us. And then secondly, we, the leaders of the workers in Ghana, those of us on the single span salary structure, we are the worst paid workers in Ghana. All those on the single span salary structure. And that is why we started calling for the review of such policy. And so I'm expecting my colleagues, organized labor, to put their heads together to force the sector minister to make sure that we've been able to review the single span salary policy. That is the way forward, I think.
Okay. And I guess in the meantime, you must continue with your contributions as they are made, and hope that your tiers 2 and 3 likely will also come in handy on a rainy day when you pension off. But a quick thought. Professor Lord Mensah mentioned that one way of resolving the problem is also increasing the age, expanding the net, increasing the age, maybe to about 65 or even 70. Is that something that those members of your union are looking forward to? Is that something that you think would work?
Well, it might help, it might not. Why am I saying so? You see, currently, if you look at the total number of contributors on SSNIT, I think it's around 1.something million. And out of this 1.6 million, 700,000 are public sector workers. You see, so still, but meanwhile, we have more than 11 million workforce in Ghana. So if SSNIT is unable to expand its contributors scale, and then the few people you say you still want to increase their age, the contribution will still be the same. Because I gave you an instance whereby a teacher who is on the rank of assistant director 2 is taking a basic salary of 4,400 Ghana cedis. This person is contributing 244 cedis every month. So if you tell the person that yes, the same person, we are giving you additional 5 years or 10 years, so the ILO will still give us a report telling us that look, your scheme is not sustainable. So it is all hands on deck. The SSNIT should be able to expand its contributor basket to get a lot of people contributing to the scheme, and then we also doing our best to make sure that whatever salary and allowance that we go for should be insurable. I think that should be the way forward.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. Let me take the final thoughts from Dr. Kwabena Donkor. What for you is the way forward, and what can we expect from your committee in Parliament as far as this issue is concerned?
Yeah. Ordinarily, if we were just looking at SSNIT alone, I would have said let's expand the pensionable age to 62. But
to 62?
Doing that would be a disservice.
Dr. Donkor, just confirm for me, I missed it. Are you saying we should extend the pensionable age, if it were just SSNIT we were talking of, to 62?
Yes, I would have said we should go to 62 if we're talking of only SSNIT.
Okay.
But if we were to do that, we'll be doing a huge disservice to the unemployed youth, the hundreds of thousands of young men and women trained, looking for jobs and not getting jobs. So that is the dilemma. And in public policy, you don't just look at one side. When you have a serious unemployment situation, you don't go keeping those in employment longer than legally required. To the associate prof, what I would say is that you can still contribute to SSNIT after age 60. I contributed to SSNIT until I turned 66 this year. I did 5 years extra. So for those in academia who are working up to 70, they can continue contributing up to about age 65 or so. There is a way around it to continue contributing.
Okay.
Because ultimately, that will also affect your lump sum. However, it also means when you go on pension, you have lesser years to live and enjoy SSNIT pension. But SSNIT is central, especially to long-term capital for the development of this country. SSNIT and pension funds all over the world, pension funds, of which SSNIT is a major player, have been the major tool for long-term capital.
Right.
And if we position SSNIT well commercially, then it can also contribute to national growth, and national growth will create more employment opportunities and more people contributing to SSNIT. We have to get SSNIT right.
Thank you, Doc, for joining the conversation. Those who joined us for this conversation, Dr. Akufo-Addo, you just heard him, ranking member of the Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises Committee of Parliament. Also on the conversation, Rev Isaac Owusu is president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and of course, Professor Lord Mensah, associate professor at the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, gentlemen who joined us virtually and on phone, we're very grateful to you. Now, I'll be sharing some thoughts with you, but before that, just know that after the break, we're bringing you that latest Hotline documentary after the floods. We'll be telling you about how some of these people have coped after the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. But before we take the break, escape to Royal Cozy Hotels or Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. We call it Drapa Dubai. Now, you have seen the rest. Now is time to see the best. Take a break from work. Take a break from the South. The Royal Cozy Hotels is the place to relax, rewind, and re-energize. It is away from the stress of the South. Now, this is what awaits you. An unforgettable safari experience, amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamuses, zebras, ostriches, among many others, using our spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or using quad bikes. Now, water sports such as jet skiing, boats or canoe rides, various family games to keep you and your families excited every day. There's also great tourist attractions in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock, Slave Caves, and more. So guess what? We're inviting you. Escape from the South, escape to the North, escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Drapa Dubai for an unforgettable safari experience. You can reach them on 0501 694 280 or 0248 844 463 for reservations or further inquiries now. Pick up your phone, get in touch. We'll be right back after the break. This is the AM Show with Benjamin Akakpo. We're grateful that you've stayed with us. Up next, we bring you a Joy Hotline documentary, After the Floods. It's a tale of the misery, pain, and neglect that was handed to residents of North Tong and surrounding areas months after the spillage of the Akosombo Dam by the Volta River Authority, and how resilience is fortifying these people. Stay tuned for more on this documentary produced by Carlos Calon.
The Volta River Authority, the VRA, announced a controlled spillage of the Akosombo Hydro Dam on September 15, 2023, citing excess water levels. However, this single decision became and still is a major disaster in the area thus far, affecting an estimated 39,000 people in the lower Volta Basin. Public toilets, mortuaries, hospitals, refuse dams, homes, farms, schools, and even roads were submerged. Education was severely disrupted. Schools like this one in Agbetikpo in the North Tongo district of the Volta region became shelters for thousands of flood victims. Classrooms became bedrooms, and for months, education was severely disrupted.
They don't have any class to learn. There is nothing like class for them. So UNICEF came to our aid to donate this tent for the teachers and the students to be managing.
Janet Agbavo is the class teacher for KG 1 and 2 here at Agbetikpo makeshift tent classroom. We want to find out from her how she's been coping with the situation. How many kids do you have in this class?
Over 74.
And you are the only teacher?
Yes, please.
Tell us, how are you coping?
The situation here is not easy, but we are managing because the keys to sometimes because of the hot weather over here, the tent under the tent is not easy, but we are managing. And our learning and teaching materials too, we have to pace them. So far as KG is concerned, we have to pace them. The walls of the classroom have to be talking with colors, but because of this situation, we find ourselves over here. We have to be removing the things. Friday, we have to move the books and everything to the office. Monday morning, the kids sometimes they pick those things and bring them here.
Livelihoods were shattered. Meet 38-year-old Patrick Wolanyo. He is a father of two. Before the flood, he relied on this corn mill and domestic poultry for income. Not only has his livelihood been washed away with the rushing flood waters, Patrick is now homeless.
Before the flood, this is what I've been using. This is my property. This is what I get my daily bread away from to feed my family. But since the flood have taken place, you can now even see my place. The whole thing have been immersed in the water, so I can't even use the machine anymore. Now it's been destroyed. Those who know much about this machine knows the cost. So they can even tell you straightforward that it's even more than 5,000 now. This is also my pen. This is where I rear my goats, my duck, and even my fowls. So now they are all destroyed. Even the fowls, the thieves have even come for some because they don't have any place to live. So they've been stolen. So since they are no more, life is very difficult now. I don't even have anything doing anymore. This is where I used to stay with my family.
Okay.
Yeah, so for now the status of it is not even looking nice for you. As yourself you can see.
Okay.
There's no one in because I'm the one. I'm now living with my sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is because of the flood. The flood waters came so high. I can see it up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the entire place, submerged in water. Yes, and so as we move in, you can see a lot of cracks in here. So you virtually couldn't save anything.
Yeah.
Because in here, I can see pillows on the floor.
Everything.
I can see the plaster on the wall actually falling off. Which tells you any moment this structure can just come down. Even us standing in here is not safe for us. I can also see your bed and then your drawers, the mosquito nets. The fan is still hanging here.
Yeah.
And so your electricity cables are still hanging, which clearly shows that you could not save anything at all. I mean, your bicycles, everything in here. And so these are your personal effects that you've actually lost in this flood. And so when you look back, you come back to this room where you used to have your family family discussions, and you see the state of affairs now. I mean, what comes to mind?
It's very, very painful anytime when I get here. That's why you can even see there's no cleaning. Because when I get there, when I see things, then I don't know what to touch. I don't even know where to start from. So I feel very sad.
Hectares of crop farms, hundreds of livestock, fish ponds, and the future investment of the youth have all not been spared.
The size of the farm is almost 20, so the 15 hectares was submerged by the water. And also, this pipeline was damaged and ruined by the water.
It's about 4 months now. How are we going to survive our children? We're going to school. And our coconut, my cassava farm, I alone, I'm having cassava farm about 10 acres. And the others, they are having. In Siko right now, if you go to the farm top, everything tend to firewood. All our cassava tend to firewood. And we can't afford our life together. How are we going? And up to now, the village is not telling anything about our life. How are we going to survive?
This used to be Agboklai Amevo's house, 6-bedroom house, before the coming of the flood. But as we speak, and as you can see, the entire building has dissolved.
Apart from his house, He also lost the 100,000 Ghana cedis capital he pumped into this catfish business to the flood disaster.
Gahume in Dema, a number, I know about 100,000 Ghana cedis. Joseph Akwete, who used to run a piggery here in another community, also lost a number of pigs due to the flood. Joseph is here with me.
The flood scattered everything because of the spirit. The piglets all died. It took them away and nothing remains.
So at the time you heard about how many pigs in here?
I have about 85. I'm very much annoyed with VRE, and we are not hearing anything from them. My house collapsed and we are all at Agbetipo camp there. We at the tent where we are not getting it easy at all.
According to the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, in the North Tongu alone, 1,540 homes were destroyed by the flood waters, rendering thousands homeless. The aged and the physically challenged are the most affected.
Ablajo gbogbo àti ochichima o chaha atoma gbe adrono jire ho po abe we chakra po abe 2 million 1.5 o cover makata ochichima akama bala ge gbe do are o makpo maruga ka bola no makliga mala da ka mo.
85 years old Bavu Achu lives in this Sikor community with his wife. He's challenged by sight, which means he's not able to see. So that's how the wife takes care of him every day. And the building you see behind me used to be their place of abode. I mean, this is where the family lived. But due to the flood situation, as you can see, the building is down.
Rebuilding these communities and homes more than 6 months after the flood does not seem possible for many. In the face of this huge destruction and displacement, the VRA and the Energy Ministry insist the spillage was due to unexpected high inflows of around 400,000 cubic feet of water per second into the reservoir, based on inconsistent weather forecasts from the Ghana Meteorological Authority, the GNAT.
In July, we depend on the Ghana Meteorological Agency for forecasts because the water that comes, it comes through rainfall. At the time, the forecast gave the indication that we are not supposed to expect too much water into the reservoir. But in August, the situation changed. The same GMET now issued a new adapted forecast that the situation has changed and we should expect a lot of rain going forward.
They relied on expert information from the Meteorological Authority Agency. That changed, and that changed the course of things.
But the head of Central Analysis and Forecasts at the Ghana Meteorological Authority, the GMET, Felicity Ahiafianyo, disagrees, insisting nothing changed as an accurate forecast was provided to the VRA ahead of time.
Our forecasts did not change. The documents are all there. It's a public document. Whatever we send to them is also made available online, so you can pick it and study it. Last year, the seasonal forecast came out on the 10th of March 2023. in the presence of the media and other stakeholders. And this document was sent to VRA. Then when that one was that, we call it March, April, May, and then April, May, June. Then we have June, July, August, and then the trend continues. So we keep it 3-month season that we deal with. So for the 3 months, the accumulation, how it will be, that is what we are predicting. And then that is what we've given to them. So in a year, we provide them with 3 seasonal forecasts. That is the major rainy season purposely for the southern sector, and then the one for the north, and then the minor season. So the forecast for last year predicted that some areas are going to experience above rainfall for 2023 season. And then the minor to when it was out, it was also having the same indicators that most areas are likely to have above the normal rainy seasons that we know, of which it was communicated to them. In this particular case, we cannot be blamed for that, because we have been providing them with daily, weekly forecasts.
This means the VRA's claim that the over 400,000 cubic feet of water that entered the dam per second before September 15, 2023 was unforeseen is untenable. The question on the lips of victims are: who was interpreting the GNAT forecast data at the VRA? What changed in July, as claimed by Engineer Abdul Noor Wahab? Whose decision was it at the VRA to postpone spillage till September 15, 2023? Wasn't the VRA carrying out its independent monitoring upstream? What does the VRA's emergency preparedness plan say? And what was the level of engagement with residents before, during, and after the spillage? The Member of Parliament MP for North Tong constituency, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, insists his people deserve answers.
I cannot believe that such a major decision, Cabinet was not brought up to speed, was not apprised about it, and that the Commander-in-Chief did not give the green light. So I take the view that from VRA all the way to the very top, the President, the Commander-in-Chief, they owe us explanations. They must tell us, how did this happen? Why is it that we didn't see any serious emergency preparedness? There was no national mobilization. Even you in the media, if you had been engaged, you were told that, look, because this is not a natural disaster which took us by surprise. You decided that on this day, the 15th of September, you are going to open the floodgates. So you knew. So when you took that decision that you are going to open the floodgates on the 15th of September 2023, in between the period you took the decision that you are going to open the floodgates and the day you spilled, what did you do? How come as a member of parliament, nobody called me? Nobody. Not from the Ministry of Energy, not from the VRA, not from the presidency. Nobody. We should all have been engaged. Stakeholders, the chiefs, assemblymen, I mean, the media, there should have been sensitization. Those who should be evacuated, moved to safety, to higher ground. There was no, I was expecting that there will be sensitization, there will be education, there will be some national mobilization, the media will be informed, at the national media, local media, all of us will be engaged. Then people who have to move out of harm's way, they will be evacuated, the aged, women, children, the vulnerable groups. I mean, so that they surprise, and then the level of losses will have been minimized. At least you can, if you're a shop owner, you can move your things to safety. If your certificates, your savings, those who have money at home, you have a few gadgets you want to protect, at least so that people's dignity will be preserved.
Michael Obinkonedo is the chairman of the Civil Technical Division of the Ghana Institution of Engineers. He shares how such spillages are supposed to be carried out by standard practice when it comes to hydro dam management.
The standard practice would have been to ensure that there's a certain buffer zone downstream of the dam that nobody occupies. If some more dredging had been done, if they had been able to convince people to move out of the potential flood release zone and things, this thing would have come down. I think the only thing they could have done differently maybe would have been the evacuation and how it was done. You know, better mobilization, throwing a bit more resources to move NADMO and the Navy and all those things.
Where were all these people? How come the military came many days after, fire service after, many days after, NADMO and others? I mean, NADMO came to meet me on the ground after 4 or 5 days, if my memory serves me right. I know certainly it was more than 3 days before they came. And even when they arrived, they were not resourced, they were ill-prepared, and they were shocked at the level of devastation. So, of what use was that simulation if you could not guarantee that what you have told the people, you know? And then, do you know that even the safe havens, and I have described them as not safe and they are not havens, they are just classrooms. So the biggest displaced campus, I call them, was the Mefo Senkizito Senior High School. Mefo Senkizito Senior High School. How did they prepare that place? It was many days after that we had to, and we started looking for even tents, looking for mobile toilets, and bringing, you know, water tankers to the place. So even in terms of the evacuation, moving the people to these displaced camps, what they call safe havens, how did they prepare those places? I mean, you go to Agbetikpo, for example, you go to Mapedagome, I mean, and you see that, but for donations that came in, tents, water tankers, mobile toilets, the places were not ready. So in terms of preparation, the VRA and the entire government must concede that they were not ready. They just were derelict and negligent and took the people for granted. That is why we are outraged, totally upset about how we were treated. You don't treat citizens that way. So, I mean, if anybody tells me that things were going according to plan, as I heard one VRA engineer say, and they are following their simulation plan and their emergency preparedness plan, it is not true. It is not fair to us. That is not what happened.
Nana Yaw Akwada is a public safety advocate. He also believes the VRA edge in the execution of its mandate with regards to ensuring public safety.
There are 4 phases in emergency management. There is a mitigation phase where we look at what actions to take to reduce the impact or the consequences of the event. There is also a preparedness stage where we look at what to do, where to go, who to call, etc. Now, in these 2 critical phases, I believe the VRA failed largely. And if you fail in that 2 critical phases, it makes your response and recovery very difficult. And so that is what played out in the aftermath of the spillage of the dam. And so I think that the VRA largely failed in this regard. As far as the book and the reality is concerned, they did not tick the boxes.
These are reasons why affected residents, including traditional leaders, believe the real underlying reasons for the spillage of the dam should be investigated and victims duly compensated.
VRA should have the capacity to foresee what would have happened, because the Meteo people have been there, they have been saying this, Bismarck said this. And I believe they have a close monitoring system So I feel there's something wrong somewhere. If the monitoring system is effective, I doubt why they should say they have been, they were taken by surprise. No.
I am very, 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 very disappointed by the VRA. If they open the water in Burkina Faso area, it takes days before it reach here. What is the communication that they have before they open? Because these things all look like it's a planting.
VRA didn't do its work well. That is why Mepe and all towns which were affected were flooded. From the time the president came here till now, the interministerial committee have not been on the ground to meet the traditional leaders, to hear of our challenges. How would they be able to help us if they don't come to hear our challenges?
Yao Nsako is a former vice president of Unilever Ghana and Nigeria. He questions why the interministerial committee set up by the president has yet to come up with findings of what went wrong.
An interministerial committee was formed. Have they issued a report? Has there been a commission of inquiry? VRA, which is the public sector body that is at the center of this, have we got a report? I actually have gone out cold looking for it, and I can't find one. So the starting point is that the facts of what went wrong must be put before us. What are the lessons from this? This is how you develop a democracy.
As at now, there's no trace of compensation. There has not been any settlement or resettlement. There's nothing to show.
For nearly 20 years of my practice in this country, I have not seen any government, holding people accountable for public safety mishaps. It is almost business as usual. I mean, a disaster or something bad occurs, let's go out there, spend the taxpayers' money, give contracts, procurements, people take their cuts, and then problems partly solved. We all go to bed and wait for the next emergency or disaster to strike. It's almost like an endless cycle of governmental failure on the public safety front. And this is largely influenced by a passive society that constantly has failed to hold the feet of duty bearers close to the fire of accountability.
The big question is, could this disaster have been avoided?
I do take the view that it could have been avoided, because if you look at the history, and we grew up in these communities from 1968 to 2010, the VRA has failed. And this is the first time we are seeing this level of devastation. So we are of the view that the way and manner it was done, it appears that people waited to the last hour and did a full blast, and there was no proper emergency preparedness. We were taken by surprise. We've never seen anything on this scale, on this magnitude. So something really went amiss this time round, and that is why we keep insisting that there ought to be a probe, so that, most importantly, those who were negligent, those who shirked their responsibilities and caused us all of this pain, this devastation, this catastrophe, are brought to book. But in addition to that, we need to learn lessons as a country, so that there will be institutional reform, so that we can all put in place the needed measures. So we need an inquiry. And it is through that inquiry that all the facts will be established. All sides will be heard, including the victims, the engineers, the management of VRA, the Minister for Energy and his colleagues at the ministry, the presidency. Did this go to cabinet? Did cabinet give the green light? What did they check before they gave the green light? We need to know.
If 36,000 people in upper class Accra were displaced, would we be this quiet and this indifferent? If cantonments, Ridge, East Airport, well, Airport Residential area, you know the places now better than me. Trasaco Valley, if those places, if they lay in the pathways of the spillage, would we just have pumped water and displaced that 6,000 of the bourgeoisie? And would this country be as peaceful as it is? It is an indictment on us, the elite. I count myself as part. It is an indictment on us that when things affect the ordinary people, we are a little bit more indifferent. And if you build a society like this, is something I say all the time.
Okay.
James Baldwin famously said, the most dangerous creation of any society is the man with nothing to lose. That is what we are doing.
Welcome back on the AM show, and from that hotline documentary, we get into the politics, hard issues ahead of tomorrow's by-election in Ejisu. So what is it in Ejisu that has sent the whole government machinery, from the president to the vice president, among others, campaigning, especially when the NDC is not contesting, especially when this is a stronghold of the MPP? But there's something in there. There's an independent candidate, Owusu Eduomi, Kwabena Owusu Eduomi. It's a straight fight between Kwabena Owusu Eduomi and, of course, Kwabena Boateng, a lawyer representing the NPP. What is going to be the tale of the tape, and how are things going to pan out? Well, let's listen to Mr. President there as he spoke in recent times, ramping up votes for the NPP.
Yes, you Eduomi, NPP. All right. So, person done it here. All person done it in my MPP. Now, you may feel no more about on the M1. 2008. Obano. Na Ejisu ha. You know, MP, Emma Ejisu, a cabinet minister. Yeah, deputy minister. Cabinet minister. Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mijemu 2007 semekwa pray the franka tuni abano ena yemu Akufo epejano ebese manemu cabinet minister ono no baya ono no besi kan eno tu no ebeye candidate ena afensusu obeye MP eno de say eno de papa yes sir eno de na nije ho. So Abawa to cabinet minister, our MP, and then a Bonnie Bienim. Now, what do so be about the two? Woody, a friend say, deputy minister, and Ioya, Emma and Onam now, Kika cancer. Sadia, no. Yeah, independent, BR. You who teach you since summer said that she. So, pay you for business, and see, and yeah, one, no.
Those winding Kwabena Owusu Eduomi. Well, we'll find out, but let's come into the studio. We have that latest report from Global Info Analytics, and the head of that institution, Musa Dankwa, joins the conversation. Good to have you join the conversation. Good to hear. And there are some interesting comments that Mr. President has been passing, even before we situate the latest survey, the poll that you've brought to bear. What is your quick thought on that? And then I'll bring in Professor Halidu Seidu.
My thought on the comment of the President is that should Eduomi win the by-election, how does he expect him to caucus with the MPP?
Big question. We'll come into the details of that, the nitty-gritty of it. I've been posing that same question today. But let me also bring in Professor Halidu Seidu, He is head of the political science department at the University of Ghana. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you, my brother.
So I'll pose that same question to you. Ejisu has become a hotbed overnight. What used to be just an easy walkover, run over for the MPP has become a tricky situation because of that independent candidacy of Eduome. But you have the president there saying that, guess what, Eduome can go his way, it's not a problem, but he should stop talking. And he says this, only an NPP candidate can lobby for constituency development. Only an NPP candidate. I don't know, but what did you make of, the president, the vice, all of them going there, and some of the commentary from the president?
Okay, thank you. Good morning to you, and then good morning to your viewers. I think this scenario is replaying phenomena in my mind, but largely, politics is a game of numbers, especially in the legislature. This government still have about 7 to 8 months to prosecute government business. And the numbers game in our parliament has not been favorable over the years. So 137, 137. If MPP loses Ejisu, they're going to reduce by one number in parliament. And that will definitely affect the prosecution of government business. So the numbers game is very critical. But two, elections are always seen as a census on the performance of the incumbent government. So the MPP don't want to lose this seat, and then it will be like, even in your own stronghold, you have lost seats because you are not doing well. So victory in Ejisu will become the kind of campaign message for the MPP moving forward, that government have done well, we have been up to task, we have been implementing our manifesto.
But wait, Prof, how can that be a campaign message when it's like the NDC winning in Ketu North or winning in some other constituency in the Volta region? I mean, it's expected. It just has only become an issue because there's an independent candidate who was formerly in bed with the MPP, isn't it? I mean, Ejisu is a clear-cut MPP constituency.
Not necessarily. Over the years, we have heard prominent people from Ashanti region complaining that they are the vote basket of the MPP, but they have been neglected. They have complained about their roles. They have complained about stalled developmental projects, that they have been treated unfairly and all those things. It has become even to the extent that I think his prominence, the Ashanti has had cause to mention that at least deservedly some development should come to them. And if people have, the NDC and other opposition political parties have always said that the Ashanti region has been taken for granted, and they wouldn't do that. So it is a matter of political strategy that if MPP loses this seat, it becomes a very good campaign message for the opposition. And they'll say that even in their own backyard, because of their poor performance in government, they have lost. So it is a matter of what? Campaign strategy moving forward. It's not just about the numbers game in parliament, but it also adds up to a boosting right. It's just like if you win your constituency, your stronghold, it looks nothing. But if you lose it, it becomes a very big issue. So I think largely it has to do with the idea of the fact that it is not just a swing region or constituency, it is their stronghold. And you look at it, since 1996, the MPP has never won by less than 80% at the presidential level in Ejisu. And the NDC, and they have at the parliamentary level, they have never won by less than 70%. I think the list was 75.7 in 1996. And the NDC has never made it more than, has never done more than, close to 20%. I think the highest they came to 20% was 23.2 in 1996. So it is the bastion of MPP support. So to lose a by-election in their constituency like that is a huge indictment on government and government performance. So I think it is critical. I know that this has become so competitive because of the very strong. We have 3 independent candidates, but the former MP, which is Akufo-Addo, he is very strong, and I think the campaign messages, the wrap-up campaign messages of the MPP has actually given this guy a huge political mileage. I think almost speaker after speaker spent time saying how he is not fit and bastardizing him, rather than speaking to the delegates what the MPP will do in that constituency, what the person coming up, the second vice chairman, what is he coming to do? What is his pedigree? What are his experiences? What can he do to actually uptake development in the constituency? All the speeches after speeches were focusing on this strong independent candidate. And that has given him a huge political mileage. People who didn't even know him want to search and look out for him. Who is this guy who is making this whole thing very competitive? Who is this guy who has become a serious thorn in the flesh of the MPP, including even the president? So I think largely all the speeches have done a lot of disfavor to the MPP's candidate and has rather focused on highlighting and negating and bastardizing the stronger independent candidate. And people definitely search out for him. I never knew him until all these things started. Then I got curious to know who he is. And I think there are a lot of independent-minded people who do the same. And I'm happy Musa Dankwa is here. Their post actually suggests that I think he is getting a lot of support from both the NDC floating voters, and even he's eating a bit into the MPP's voter population. And since he's there, I think I'll allow that to.
Yes, but before I come into the studio, because that's where we'll really just two quick questions. So it would appear from what you're saying that from where you sit, you think because of the incessant attack, even from as high an office as the presidency, the vice presidency, on Kwabena Owusu-Aduomi, there is some sympathy being courted by people for him, one. And two, what do you think, and if you do agree, what do you think strategy-wise? Do you think the NDC saw this coming, and that is why they said, you know what, we're not going to contest. We're stepping aside so that their voters, among other floating voters, could then go and do the damage, and then it would serve their purpose. Do you think that is what is happening?
It is the wisest decision that the NDC has taken. If NDC was going to file a candidate, he wouldn't have been competitive as this independent candidate is, because they are not filing a candidate. And one, they will have spent so much money and eventually even losing the seat. So to decide that they are not going to contest, directly or indirectly throwing their weight behind this candidate, has actually created that mileage that he has received. And I think that is rather making the election more competitive. And I think politics and elections specifically is more about strategy. And I think the NDC has gotten it right now. Whether the independent candidate wins or not, at least it has shown the MPP that incumbency advantage has a limit to some extent. And I think I'm so kind of surprised by the statements that has been made by the president and other leading MPP members in Ejisu, looking at what they did in Forbina the last time. The same things were said about this candidate, their candidate who had gone in. Yes, Isiama. And then they later on went back to plead with him and to work with him. And he's serving a lot of their interest in Parliament. If I were them, I would have taken a cue from that experience and be very, very moderate and decorous with my language in what's happening in the Ejisu now. And I think politicians usually don't learn.
Let me come into the studio. Musa Dankwa, I see you laughing because this is what, immediately I heard some of the comments. I became startled, but even more. And maybe, Doc, Prof, just humor me on this as well. When, for example, the president says, so someone like this, an independent candidate, cannot bring development, quoting his words. Let me just bring that. I just want, from the governance standpoint, how right that is. He says, only an NPP candidate can lobby for constituency development. How does that sit with you?
I don't think it is entirely correct to say that. We know that when your government is in power, it gives you a little bit of advantage because the executive, people who are in the executive positions are mostly your colleagues, especially in a situation where there is so much patrimonial politics, which has been laced in governance. It suggests that you can use the party route to reach out to executive officers to lobby development into your constituency. But where it is a matter of free and fair electoral processes, every constituency deserves the right to be developed by the government of the day, whether the candidate is from that party that is in power or not. So let's assume that our system is not that open and that free. So because he is not part of the government in power, it may affect his ability to lobby the vote. But mind you, he's also a former member of parliament, but also he comes from a constituency, a region that is the stronghold of the NPP. And there are caucuses in the NPP that cover the Ashanti region. So he could also even lobby through the Ashanti caucus to be able to get development. But even development is not just the preserve of government. There are other civil society organizations, NGOs, international donor communities that are able to step in. If the MP is very well connected, he can lobby and development outside of the purview of government. But it may become very difficult, but not impossible, for MPs to be able to develop their constituencies, even if they are not members of government.
Prof, hold for me. Let me bring in the Director of Operations at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Srebo Kweku, into the conversation. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
It's really good having you. This is just to cross-check a few issues. How prepared are you for tomorrow's by-election in Ejisu?
Thank you very much. My regards to your listeners. We have submitted all the materials and the resources that are needed to the district. I've been in Ejisu since Saturday. Everything is set. Today, we are concluding the packaging and the orientation of how the work will be done with the night security and the rest. We have had a lot of meeting with the security, so I would say that we are good to go.
Okay, so we can guarantee that elections, the process will start on time and that everything will be seamless, at least per your preparations, right?
Exactly, by our preparation, that is the situation. We are hoping that by 6:30, all the polling stations should have received their materials, so we can start at 7 o'clock.
Are there any challenges you faced so far?
So far, we haven't encountered any challenge.
Okay. We've also heard some allegations of people stuffing ballots and all of that. What is your response to that?
I was thinking that we have gone beyond this form of allegations. Because the materials will be sent to the polling station, the ballot boxes will be opened and shown to the people present before voting starts. Then when we finish, we do the counting there and there. We don't take the boxes to a secret place to do the counting. So if the ballot boxes are stopped, doesn't mean that when we are going to start the balloting, there will be a ballot press in it, and when we open it and show it to the voters, would they see it? I don't know where the stopping will take place. We have gone beyond such allegations.
Right. Just a quick one before you go. In terms of security, I know you are not technically in charge of security, but in terms of securing the process and ensuring that the right results are declared, if you cast your mind back to the primary in Yendi of the NPP and what happened, the NPP decided to give the nod to Aliu Mahama, right? But looking at the skirmishes that ensued there, how has the EC collaborated with the police service, for example, to prevent any such happening? Because you see it is a crucial election. The independent candidates, the NPP's candidate. How is the EC looking at the security situation?
As I said, we have had a lot of interactions with the security. The top security people are all in Ejisu, and they have given us all the assurances. So we are hoping that nobody will go and misbehave to create any confusion for anybody. So like we did in Kumawu and Asinov, we are expecting that it to be replicated, if not even better. So I am convinced that the people will behave, everybody will behave, and we'll have peaceful elections.
Any final words, Doc?
Come again?
Any final words?
Yeah, my advice is that elections are won by the people who voted for you. So if anybody has an issue, they should rather go and talk to the people for them to vote for them. The Electoral Commission will do anything to protect the sanctity of the election. And I pray that nobody will get into trouble because of election. Nobody should lose even the strap of the hair because of the election. You ask us to take a decision. Go and give your one vote to the candidate of your choice and allow others to do this, so that they will count it accordingly.
All right. Doc, thank you so much. We're grateful that you took the time to join us this morning. Dr. Srebo Kweku is Director of Operations with the Electoral Commission. All right, so we also have Nana Boakye, who is organizing secretary of the MPP. He joins the conversation. Nana Boakye, good morning.
Good morning. My position is national organizer.
National organizer, my apologies.
Yes.
National organizer, Nana Boakye. I saw you in the footage in there in Ejisu, also whipping up, the crowd to vote for Kwabena Boateng, your candidate. But some of the data we are seeing suggests that it's going to be a very tight race. Global Info Analytics coming through with a survey, also pointing to the fact that your candidate is going to have a torrid time. It appears the NDC end is supporting the independent candidate, Kwabena Osu-Eduomi, and some floating voters, and even some members of the NPP. How concerned are you?
Oh, yes. We are not being complacent at all. But however, for me as a person, I don't really go by info analytics and what they say. For me, I think they've rather conducted more discredited polls than the ones that we see they had some credibility.
You say they are discredited, but let me just add that in the past, even in your primaries, a lot of what they have conjectured, a lot of what they have done research on the ground about has actually come to play, even in your primaries.
It is not true. It is not true.
It is not?
In recent times, you recall that they predicted that in our internal presidential primaries, we are going to go for a second round, and that it was going to be neck to neck race. In fact, before then, they had even mentioned that Alan Samantin was even going to win. And when Alan exited, they said it was going to be a very tight race, and it was going to go into a second round. I mean, it was clearly false. I mean, it looks like somebody who just comfort of living area and who just endure, something. I'm trying to tell you that the things actually in media. But for me, most of them, they come out there. It's more discreet that they haven't.
Nanabi, I would beg of you to just position yourself a bit better. The line is getting a bit patchy. With the SRI, if you can just reposition yourself a bit. You can still hear me, right?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, now your connection is better. Now it's better. So it's not a big concern for you, Ejisu. You think this poll is not reflective of what is on the ground, but for the government machinery.
No, I'm not saying it's not a reflection of what is on the ground. We are coming up against a former MP who has been MP for 3 times, 12 years. So you will have some footprints in the constituency. We are not discounting that at all. But all that we are trying to say is that he was MP because he was MPP member. He won our primaries, and then he became the MP. He took out a cabinet minister, and then that cabinet minister never went independent. He stayed in the party and campaigned for you 3 times. Honorable Oseji, who was the foreign affairs minister, and then he took out, campaigned for you 3 different times. The first time, 2009, 2008 campaign, he did it. 2012, 2016, he did it. So it's unfortunate that you lose to John Kuma in 2020, and then all of a sudden you have some missiles against.
Okay, well, Mr. President himself said that, he is free to go independent and all that. But I have a question. With everything that is happening, it's obvious that the NPP is very concerned about this seat because of the optics and what it could mean. But the Fomena situation comes to mind here. Honorable Isiama and what happened. And some are asking, why is the NPP playing by this playbook one more time? And we can't work with this person, and this person will not be able to bring in development, and this person is being ungrateful. Couldn't you have done your campaign without going down that trajectory? Because let's assume, this is politics, anything could happen. If Eduomi wins, how then do you bring him into your caucus? Or would you let him caucus with the others?
How do you want us to react to it? When you have the NDC saying they are supporting him, I'm surprised you're even asking this question.
We've spoken to many members of the NDC and They've
So,
never
hold on.
suggested that they were
Kindly
supporting.
grant me this space to respond. We are a political entity. In our constitution, if you go independent against our elected candidate, you are no more part of the party. That is number one. Number two, we have a candidate in this race. And the independent candidate is raising issues. In fact, at one point, he's saying that he's the one constructing the roads. Yes, His Excellency the President must answer and say that this is not true. It is the MPP government that is constructing the roads. Again, when you say that you have been unfair, I recall that in recent times, you granted an interview and said that MPP is not benefited, he's not gotten anything from MPP, nothing whatsoever. And if the argument should be stretched, then it means he has rather given something out to the MPP. But we need to let people know that he's been MP on MPP's ticket for 12 good years. And then he took out an MPP member. That MPP member never went independent. And these are facts. So it is not as if, so I don't understand how the strategy you are trying to put across. So what, we should not be responding to some of the issues you raised, and the fact that the NDC is saying that we are not contesting, and that they have thrown their weight behind him. We should not mention it.
I never suggested that. All I'm saying is, for example, when you use language like only an MPP candidate can lobby for constituency development, it's a bit problematic, isn't it?
No, it's not problematic at all. It is a fact. It is a fact because this is an MPP government. Honorable Asenso is an MPP deputy. He is a minister because he's an MPP MP, and his government is in power. So if he says that, look, please vote for the MPP parliamentary candidate. And don't forget that in Parliament, because of Honorable John Kuma's demise, now it is 137, 137.
All right.
137, 137.
Right.
So we will need an MPP MP to still hold on Parliament to our slim majority that we have. So yes, we need to campaign to people. We need to tell people that they should not look the way of the independent candidate.
Right. But if, because this is life, anything can happen. If Eduome wins, would you want him to caucus with the MPP?
He's not going to win.
If he does, the same way Isiama won in Fomena.
He is not going to win.
You can say that for sure.
Yes.
So the MPP is winning in Ejisu.
We have won already, let me tell you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Nana Boakye, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
Nana Boakye is the national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. But let me also bring in Nana Osei-Bonsu, aide to the man you just heard Nana Boakye speaking about, that he's not going to win, aide to Kwabena Owusu Eduome. Nana Osei-Bonsu, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, my friend.
I don't think I need to regurgitate this. You heard Nana Boakye, national organizer of the MPP, saying that your candidate, Charlie, there's no way he's going to win. Your response?
It doesn't even need a response. Nana B does not vote in Ejisu. I am voting in Ejisu. And we are saying that Mr. Diomi is going to win tomorrow. So what does it mean? What does it mean when he says he's not going to win? In any case, he is not voting in Ejisu. He doesn't vote in Ejisu. My vote will be counted, and it will be counted for Mr. Diomi. And so even on this platform today, it is 1 against 0.
Now, looking at some of the allegations very quickly that your candidate has been making about, the MPP has done nothing for him, and some roads he is doing them. Members of the party responded. The president himself said that, listen, and no road is done without his consent. So if anything is being done, it is he, the president, who is seeing to it, not a certain Eduome and all of that. There was talk suggesting that he was being ungrateful, that a cabinet minister had left for him to come as member of parliament and later become deputy minister and all of that. How do you respond to these concerns?
Okay, first of all, I'll respect President Nana Akufo-Addo to first apologize to the people of Ejisu for the way and manner NPP leadership has treated us. Like we mentioned earlier, Mr. Eduome did not decide to contest this on an independent ticket merely because he wanted to do so. It was because of the nature of the delegate album we have in Ejisu. the album that we are questioning its credibility. We question its credibility. It's not credible. And for that reason, we couldn't have contested on the party's ticket. Hello?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. And so that is it. So the people of Ejisu who called on me to come back, but this time on an independent ticket, since he could not contest on the party ticket because of the nature of the album we have in the constituency. Again, when he says NPP has not done anything, well, we all know how much he's contributed to the end.
Right.
He has been financing the party in the constituency. There are a number of other responsibilities he has been taking care of.
Has he constructed roads?
Pardon?
Has he constructed roads?
No, he hasn't. And Nanado has also not constructed any road in Ghana. Nanado has not constructed any road. It is government of Ghana.
Right.
It is taxpayers' money. And Ejisu has had its fair share of it. And it took Mr. Edium to lobby for our share. And so, for me, it's kind of funny when the president says that Mr. Owusu played no role in getting the project down to Ejisu.
Okay.
Certainly does not fit well with me.
Are you winning tomorrow?
Sure, we are winning tomorrow. Ejisu is speaking tomorrow. Ejisu is making a bold statement tomorrow.
Thank you, Nana Osei-Bonsu, for joining the conversation. He is aide to Kwabena Owusu-Ediomi. Let's come into the studio and then we'll wrap with you and Prof. But situate the conversation for us. What does your latest poll reveal? When did you conduct this poll?
I was between Monday 22nd and Thursday 25th.
So 3 days on the ground?
I think 4 days.
4 days?
4 days.
Okay. And what are the basic details? How many people did you sample? What is the margin of error? What are we looking at?
We sampled 1,351 voters.
Okay.
Remember, there are 102,000 voters in Ejisu, and there are about 28 electoral areas. We polled in 19 of the 28 electoral areas. And the areas we polled actually contribute about 72% of all votes in Ejisu.
Okay.
So we are quite confident that our numbers are affecting them.
Even before we get into that, you heard Nana Boakye, national organizer. He was bastardizing your polls and all. I noticed you were shaking your head vehemently. Would you like to quickly respond to him before we...
Yes, I think it's either they don't know how to read the polls themselves. So when we publish them, they can read and understand it. But we've never said anywhere that Alan was winning the MPP primaries. Never in the polls we've done. Absolutely not. Okay. What we did was to ask all voters at the time who they would prefer to lead MPP. And at that point, 54% said they preferred Alan to lead.
Okay.
We didn't say...
Not necessarily people who were going to
vote. Absolutely. So it's either the English they are struggling with or something else. Right. And then secondly, we said there would be runoff in the MPP primaries. In fact, your station is testimony of that. I had a program with one of your colleagues, and we said emphatically that this race was not going to go in any runoff because of the performance of the two candidates, and that there were 32% of people who said they were undecided or did not tell us. Certainly, they would not sit home.
So it's untenable what he was saying.
I mean, it's untenable. So if you stop spewing that lies all the time.
All right. So let's get into the main meat of the matter. What picture are you seeing in Ejisu on the back of the survey?
Look, there are dynamics happening in Ejisu right now. And the viability of Eduemi is because of MPP.
The viability of Eduemi, the independent candidate,
yes,
one of the main independent candidates,
yes,
is because of the MPP
themselves.
How so?
Because you have 36% of MPP supporters are voting for Eduemi. 36%. And then I have our 66% voting for Kwabena Boateng. Now, at the moment, overall, MPP is 50.6%. Eduemi, 47.5%. Remember,
MPP is 50.6%. Okay.
Eduemi is 47.5%. A gap of 3.1%.
3.1%?
Yes.
But you did say that your margin of error was what?
That is where I'm coming. The margin of error is 3.4%, which means that if the lead by any candidate is less than the margin of error, in polling, it's a tie race. Anybody can win the race.
It could swing anywhere.
Could swing anywhere.
In other words, this is too close to call.
Too close to call. Too close to call.
But how do you think Eduami has been able to, amass such prominence, apart from the MPP, like you are saying, maybe giving him, because now people are paying attention. Professor Ali Duseidu said he didn't even know this guy. He started reading about him because of the jabs the MPP was throwing. How do you think he's done it?
You see, there are coalition of forces against MPP in Ejisu. And remember, in by-elections, it's an opportunity for voters to vent their anger against any incumbent in by-elections. So this one opportunity for them to say that we don't like what you are doing as a protest. And then two, you have NDC that doesn't have a candidate in the race. And that 92% of NDC voters are rallying behind Eduami.
Per the poll?
Per the poll.
92% of NDC voters are going to support Eduami and vote for him.
Vote for him. You have 60% of floating voters who accounts about 16% in Ejisu are doing Eduami. 95% of smaller party supporters, CPP, PPP, and PNC guys, are doing Eduami.
In other words, this means that any little shift from core NPP voters
could spell a doom.
Kwabena Boateng is in trouble.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And the model suggests that, from what we have done from the numbers, if Eduami does extra 4% among MPP by moving from 36 to 40%, tomorrow will be his day.
So you're saying, in effect, this is the MPP's
own doing.
Seat to lose?
Yes.
It is their seat to lose?
Yes. Because it's their members that are voting for Eduami in a massive number.
Professor Ali Duseidu, how do you react to this, and what will be your parting shots for us?
I think by-elections are always protest against things that people were not happy about. Either they are members of the incumbent party or outside of the incumbent party. So I think there are a lot of things that, even internal politics within the MPP, the selection of the parliamentary candidates and all those things that came with it, a lot of people were not happy. And they believe that maybe this is an opportunity for us to protest loudly so that the party will look at us. But what is more intriguing to me about these polls is the fact that the data suggested about 33% of electors will accept bribe and vote for the candidate that has given them the bribe. 32 will accept bribe and will vote differently. If you put that two numbers of categories who accept bribe, it's about 65% compared to the number of people who will not take bribe. So it said about 13% will reject bribe but still vote for the candidate that offered it. And about, I think, 21 will reject the bribe and vote against the candidate. If you add those who will be rejecting the bribe, it's almost 34% compared to those who will be accepting the bribe. And we know that monetization and monetary politics has been very instrumental in our electoral processes. And you usually feel it more even in an isolated case of a by-election where all the people in the country will move in there. Even though I think it is highly discouraging to me, these kind of figures, but I also take solace in the fact that what happened in Asset North can happen anywhere in Ghana, that people will still take the money and decide that I'm going to respect my conscience and I'm still going to vote the way that I think I'll vote to bring development to me as an individual, to my constituency, and develop the democracy of the country. So I respect polls, especially when it is properly done. And I believe that they give us a lot of information to feed on and to change and strengthen our strategies moving forward. So I think it will be a very interesting dynamics at Ejisu, and we all look forward to what will happen tomorrow.
We all look forward to it. As political animals, as we call ourselves, we're all looking forward to it. Prof, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have the final word.
This election, I've never seen a by-election so tensed. And that
when you see a president and vice there, it means it's not a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. And if you look at the political consequences of a flip of that seat and what it means for Nanado's presidency, it could be dire. And that's why they have to win this seat to keep themselves afloat. Otherwise, 2024 election will begin to unravel in Ejisu.
The 2024 elections could begin to unravel in Ejisu.
Yes.
But even if my final bit, even if the MPP wins and they win by a small margin,
that's what I'm saying.
That will also be damaged, right?
Absolutely, because if you look at what we are seeing in the poll, we are seeing a reversal of fortunes of MPP in Ashanti region compared to what now did in 2020 elections. And if that pattern is going to be repeated in Ejisu, and we can expand this model across, that could be dire.
Mr. Dankwa, thank you very much for joining the conversation. Executive Director, Global Info Analytics. We also had joining that conversation Nana Boakye. He is national organizer of the NPP. We had Professor Ali Duseidu, head of department at the University of Ghana. At the point, we also spoke to Nana Osei Bonsu, aide to Kwabena Owusu Eduomi. We had all of these people joining the conversation, together with the Electoral Commission's Director of Operations, Dr. Srebo Kweku. Stay with us. Up next, we have our final conversation, relief and aid. What do they do in health and in education? They'll be telling us more about that right after the break. Do stay. Welcome back on the AM show. Of course, we all need relief and aid, and sometimes we get that. Sometimes we are fortunate enough. There is this group, Relief and Aid, and they are helping young people, needy, with scholarships in different institutions. And joining us for a conversation, we have David Edu. He is at the University of Cape Coast. He's a beneficiary. We also have Beatrice Esando, who is with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, together with Paul Laye, who is at the University of Ghana, Legon. They all join us for this conversation. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How did you come across Relief and Aid? Tell us about your experience, how all of this happened. I'll start with you, Beatrice.
Oh, okay. So I heard of Relief and Aid way back in 2021, and through my very good neighbor. He's quite allergic, so he introduced me to the Relief and Aid, and from there, the journey has been good so far.
Okay, David.
So I heard of Relief and Aid through my grandmother. My grandmother is a friend of Auntie Peggy, so that's how I got to know of the foundation.
All right. And for you?
I got to know of Relief and Aid in 2022 through the late Mr. Ablo.
Okay, I see. Well, tell us a bit about yourselves, your educational goals, aspirations, and how this support has helped you, get into school.
Oh, okay. I go by the name Live Otete. I'm in level 200 of University of Ghana. By God's grace, I got this scholarship, and I hope to be an agricultural economics. I study
agricultural economics.
Yes, please. Okay. So I will study hard. Since I have support now, I will study hard to become agricultural economics and also pay back to society as Madam is doing for us.
Okay. And for you, David?
So,
what do you read? What are you reading?
I'm reading Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting from the University of Cape Coast. So I'm looking forward to being a chartered accountant, and then by God's grace, I'm hopeful that I'll be working in one of the big four accounting firms.
Oh, okay. KPMG, PwC, Ernst & Young, or Deloitte.
Yeah, Deloitte.
I see the way you're smiling. And for you, Beatrice, what are you reading?
Yeah, I'm in third year. I'm a student physician assistant at KN University. Reading student physician assistantship. Yeah. My future aspiration is to be a medical doctor.
Medical doctor. Okay, so you're looking at the
currently, I'm studying physician assistantship, but she has promised to help me go to medical school itself.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I'm preparing towards that.
I see. Yes. So before you met Relief Aid, what was your story like, basically?
Okay, at that time, I hadn't gone to the university yet because I was a year late in going to the university. So that's when I met my very good neighbor, Mr. Alaji, to take me to school. Yeah.
I see. And for you?
Okay, in 2022, my friends were asking me, which school will you go? Which school will you go? But I didn't tell them because I didn't know I would get up. So I got to the late Mr. Ablo. He was my teacher at Presec 11. So he paid the money for this one, for my forms at Eugene. So when I completed and the results came, I asked him that I said, my result has come, so what next? Then he told me I should wait. So later he called me that he has a female friend called Madam Peggy, and he has told her about my situation. So I was in the house, and Mr. Abdo told me that Madam Peggy has paid for my first year school fees. So when I came to Eugene, within the first week, Mr. Abdo called me again that Madam Peggy has catered for the rest of the 3 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in what ways are you hoping to utilize the support acquired through the scholarship? In the end, how are you also going to be able to give back? You want to be a medical doctor and all of that. How are you hoping to give back in future?
Okay, so me, just as she's doing the future, when I become a medical doctor, I'm somewhere in future, I could also identify young people in the community who are also deprived in terms of financial issues and also help them. Yeah.
You pay it forward.
Yes.
Do good to others as well. Is that a consensus? Do we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
You are being helped?
Yes.
Freely you've been given.
Yes.
Freely you will give, right? Okay. We also know that yesterday there was the launch of that scholarship scheme and that 31 of you are involved. Do you know any of the others?
Yeah, I know some of them.
You know some of them. Are some of them in school with you?
No.
I have some of them. Eugene, my school.
There are some at the University of Ghana.
Level 100 now.
Level 100s. I like the way you refer to them. They are level 100. You've gone past that now. Eh? So in the end, what message do you have for people out there about this organization and the assistance they are giving you in terms of the help that you have got?
I urge them to study hard and also be humble to others, because it was through my humility that Mr. Block connected me to Madam Peg. Yes.
Okay, so humility in there.
Yes, miss.
How about studies? Because you also had to be.
Yes. I urge them to study hard too, because you can't get a scholarship with a low grade. You need to help yourself. Having helped those who help themselves.
Is that in the Bible though?
No, please.
It's there in different ways, but not exactly like that. Beatrice.
Yeah, I would say all hope is not lost. They should just work hard and pray, and then they will never know where their help is going to come from. Yeah, so they should just work hard, pray.
Okay, David.
Yeah.
Are you taking your catapult to school?
No.
You're going to slay the courses like David did to Goliath.
Yeah, I hope so.
So what are you hoping? I mean, with all of this, what would be your words of encouragement to other people?
So I would like to tell them that they shouldn't lose hope, and then they should be very prayerful, because we mean like this. I didn't know I'll be getting something like this, but through prayers and my petition to God provided for me. So I will tell them that there is light, and they have to search for that light. So they should be very prayerful.
All right. Thank you guys for coming through. And from me, I am wishing you guys the very best on that journey. I hope your dreams come through. Chartered accountancy, medical doctor, and agricultural economist. May God help your hustle.
Amen.
All right. So I've been speaking to David Edu at the University of Cape Coast, Beatrice Esandor, who is at KNUST, and Paul Laye at the University of Ghana, Legon. Let's now settle right before we go for our photo of the day. What is it? Check it out. Okay, so there it is, our photo of the day by the Caleb Mensah. And it talks about, so the title is Stains We Don't Belong, and the image alludes to abuse and the silence of child maltreatment in our society. So this is pertinent to the prejudicial systems of justice by both culture and law enforcement, and is herein addressed in this photograph, turning a blind eye to physical abuse prejudice. It's another one by our very own Caleb Mensah, captured all the way in 2019. And there it is. There it is. It's been good having you, having your company over these 4 hours from 6 till now. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Do stay with us for the rest of our programming, but up next, we serve you Joy News Desk. Stay for that.